So I'm going to confirm member access. Today's date is Monday, June 1st, 2020. As a preliminary matter, this is Paul Guanci, President of the Beverly City Council. Before beginning the meeting, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded by the City of Beverly and live streamed by BevCam on both Channel 99 and BevCam's YouTube channel. I am confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Do we have all our city councilors? Anybody?
I'm here.
And who are you?
Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. Going through the list, it looks like everybody's here. Introduction to remote meeting. Good evening. This open meeting of the Beverly City Council is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspended the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as adequate alternative public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting does have public participation. We have 2 public hearings. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and televised live and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other participants or viewers may be able to see and hear you, and anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. You have the option to turn off your video if you're participating via computer. All participants should keep their microphones or phones muted unless recognized by me to reduce background noise and feedback. Please wait until the person speaking has finished before speaking so we can clearly hear all participants. In addition, because of the remote meeting, I'm going to read Rule 22 of the Rules and Regulations of the Beverly City Council. Rule 22, all subcommittees of the council shall cause records to be kept of their proceedings. They shall report by ordinance, order, or resolve, unless otherwise provided by law. No subcommittee shall act by separate consultation, and no report of as a body shall be received unless agreed in subcommittee, actually notified and assembled for the purpose in hand, and signed by a majority of the councils on the subcommittee. Every subcommittee to which any subject may be referred shall report thereon as soon as possible after full consideration thereon and vote on. However, if the council may, by a majority vote of any order pending before subcommittee to be acted upon subcommittee at its next meeting and or to be forthwith returned to the full council. And we'll take a roll call on that when we call our meeting to order. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. That's everybody's favorite, especially Mrs. Kent. We do have public hearings, so here are the ground rules for public hearings. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite the council to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. You may mute yourself or be muted by the meeting host by clicking the microphone mute, unmute icon, pressing the mute button on your telephone, or, as Chief LaLasher said, by pressing *6 on your telephone keypad. Please reserve the chat function for technical difficulties and strictly the city council. It's not for public comment. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please state your name and affiliation before speaking. Regarding public comment, I'll ask at the beginning of the public hearing, I'll ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses. And then anybody will have 3 minutes to comment during the public hearing. And as mentioned before, we'll have a roll call vote. So I'm going to read a little more. Today has been designated as a National Day of Prayer and Remembrance for the victims of the novel coronavirus 19. Over 100,000 Americans have lost their lives to this virus, and many more are fighting for their lives in hospitals around the country. Please remember the deceased and their families in your thoughts and prayers. After the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd ask everybody to take a moment and remain quiet as we observe a moment of silent prayer for George Floyd, who, as you know, passed away last week due to an altercation in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then we will continue with our regular agenda. So I'm going to, I don't have my gavel, but call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, June 1st, 2020. Ms. Kent, could you please call the roll?
Ames? Here. Feldman?
Here.
Flaherty?
Here.
Flowers?
Here.
Creighton?
Here.
Houseman?
Here.
Rand? Rand? Rotundo?
Here.
And Guanxi.
I am here. Please observe a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to make a brief statement, and then I'd like to hear from Mayor Cahill and then Chief LaLasher, and then I would like to hear from Councilor Rand. So while the council just, I'm sorry, okay?
Pledge allegiance?
Oh, we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I thought we just did that. Councilor House, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will, Council President. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for observing the moment of silence before the Pledge of Allegiance. I apologize for that. And I like the different view of Councilor Houseman's office over at Camp David. While the council just observed a moment of silence to remember George Floyd, racism is not a subject we can remain silent about. Racism is not a political issue, it's a human issue, and every human being deserves to be treated with respect, dignity, and equality. As elected officials in our community, we need to continue to lead by example and make sure this type of behavior is not condoned in our city and beyond. I applaud the swift decision of Police Chief Arredondo of Minneapolis for terminating all 4 officers involved in Mr. Floyd's death, and believe that all 4 present were responsible for this tragic event taking place. I truly hope people realize that the violence that's occurred over the past few days is not the answer to this problem. Mayor Cahill, would you like to read your statement you put out the other day?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to say I can see from the list of attendees that it's more attendees than we typically see. I'm guessing some are on out of grave concern and interest in this issue, in the death of Mr. Floyd and what we can all do and need to all do going forward. So I thank you for that. I want to thank our Human Rights Committee, who do incredible work, and I know will be at the center of our shared efforts here. I did make a statement yesterday that let me share again with you folks. I join with you today in mourning George Floyd. My prayers are with him and his family, and I pray that those responsible for his death are brought swiftly to justice. The horror of Mr. Floyd's last minutes and his death cut to the core of all decent people. The American reality faced daily by people of color now finally must change. Not all people in America are safe in their daily lives in the way that all Americans have the right to be. This has to change, and we all need to do our part. In Beverly, in the last several years, we have significantly increased training resources for our public safety officers, with the primary focus on keeping all our residents and our officers alike safe. These efforts will continue. We have also made efforts to increase diversity in the ranks of our public safety officers, our educators, and more, in hopes that all Beverly residents will one day soon be able to see themselves represented in their community leaders. These efforts need to bear fruit more quickly, and we have much more to do. In Beverly, we are blessed to have a vibrant human rights committee consisting of talented, committed people, together with many more volunteers who support their work. Please join the dialogue. As we strive to increase inclusion and support anti-racism work, please share your concerns and ideas with them and with me. Together, we can make a difference. Every resident of Beverly has the right to feel safe here. Every resident of Beverly has the right to opportunity here. Every resident of Beverly has the right to be known, to be heard and understood, and to be valued. I pledge to rededicate myself to this effort, and I am confident in the commitment of my fellow elected leaders and our public safety and educational leaders to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And now it would be great to hear from Chief LaLasher.
Now, thank you, Mr. President. Again, this is a statement that I put out last week. So if I may, the death of George Floyd is a tragedy. As the police chief for the city of Beverly and a member of the Beverly Human Rights Committee, I condemn the actions of the police officers in Minneapolis on Monday. Their actions were deeply disturbing. There was a disregard for the training and police standards they were taught. This act of misconduct resulted in the death of a human being. Police officers come to work every day to save lives and protect the citizens. In Beverly, we specifically train on the proper apprehension techniques for suspects during arrests. At no time ever are officers trained to put pressure on the neck or throat. I have watched the George Floyd video and it disturbs me to my core. I support the decision of Minneapolis Police Chief Dario Arredondo to terminate the 4 officers involved in Mr. Floyd's death and do not need to wait for the official report to understand the officers involved in this situation did not follow proper police procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Now I would like to go to Councilor Rand, the Council Vice President, to introduce what we spoke about this afternoon. Councilor Rand?
Thank you. Can you hear me? I was having trouble before.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Chief, for sharing your statements with us. And I wanted to also say thank you to President Guanci for your support and to my colleagues for coming together to all of us each share a statement as human beings who live in Beverly. So we've all taken a moment to answer the following question. What do you do just as a human being living in Beverly to support and make sure that people who look different from you feel safe and welcome in our community? And so we've all prepared our answer to that prompt. Shall I start?
I think we should start, and then we'll go 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Council Flaherty, Flowers, and then myself.
Okay, thank you. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that it's my hope that this is the beginning of a conversation about race and racism in City Hall. So thank you. So what I do to help people who look different from me feel more safe and welcome in my community is always smile and wave and say hello. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Rand. I just basically, I look beyond their skins and try to treat everyone with respect and hope that they do the same. Both their skin and how they act are 2 total different things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ames?
I will do my all to actively listen and to the point of truly understanding every resident. And beyond that, embrace enthusiastically constructive change.
Thank you, Councilor Ames. Councilor Houseman.
Yes, I will be mindful of all those around us in our city that they need to be treated with equal dignity and respect, regardless of who they are or what walks of life they come from. I would just like to read a very brief sentence from Martin Luther King. The racial problem will be solved in America to the degree that every American considers himself or herself personally confronted with it. Whether one lives in the heart of the Deep South or on the periphery of the North, the problem of injustice is his or her problem, and is his and her problem because it is America's problem. I'm mindful that America was born with a constitution that contains original sin in terms of its recognition of citizenship. And I practice in my personal life and as well in my professional life in providing respect to all men and women, regardless of their walk of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Feldman?
Hi, thank you. I was thinking about this question today and about how I can do more, not necessarily about what I currently do, but what I could do more for the future, for making everyone feel welcome. And as a mother of young sons, of raising two young white boys in our community, I am hoping to create a more diverse experience for them in a community that doesn't necessarily have that diversity in their classroom. And so I plan on working with the library, at least at my children's elementary school, to make sure that the collection is representative of both authors and main characters that represent people of color in the community, doing the same regular things that they do, because I really think that our children's perception of diversity is the key to the future being more equitable and inclusive for everyone.
Thank you, Councilor Feldman. Councilor Frady?
Thank you, Mr. President. Immediately, I thought of the word respect, and I've heard it multiple times over and over again. So to expound on that, I really strive to live by this one golden rule that we all learned as young children, which is love your neighbor as yourself. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Councilor Frady. Councilor Flaherty? Tim, you turned on? Turn yourself on.
There we go. Sorry about the delay.
Thank you.
I live by a simple rule. I treat all people the way I want to be respected and do it in a meaningful way. And I try to live by example to my community and to my kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Councilor Flowers?
Thank you. So as I considered this prompt, I thought about what other roles I play in the community, and there are several. And one of them is, like Councilor Feldman, a mom to a child who I believe I have an imperative responsibility to help him understand what racism is in America and the privilege that he carries, and how he and I need to work to confront that. But I also thought about my role as a volunteer PTO member at his elementary school. And my role is one where I am privileged to be able to help our educators, work with our educators as a representative of our PTO to bring arts and enrichment opportunities and presentations to his elementary school. And I'm mindful and have tried to be, and I'm committed to doing better, that his principal talks about the need for providing children with mirrors and windows. And mirrors refers to bringing in educators, leaders, and presenters to allow all children to see themselves reflected in the people that we are telling them as the adults in their lives have value and worth and a message that's important. And so bringing in arts and enrichment presenters, working with the teachers and that principal at Hannah School, which is my sort of small corner of the elementary school world, to ensure that we really are bringing in presenters for arts and enrichment who represent all children in the school, but also she talks about windows, which is helping particularly our white children in Beverly, children of privilege, to be able to see past stereotypes, bias, and barriers, and to introduce them to concepts, people, and new ways of thinking that will help to expand their ability to pick up this work and continue it. So I'm committing to do that more fully in my volunteer role at the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flowers. Always well spoken. You must do that for a living. We really appreciate it. And I'll just add that I've always lived by the words that were taught to me by my parents. Treat others the way that you would want to be treated, no matter what their race, color, creed, or social situation may be. We're all created equal, and there are those that still feel the need to realize that. And they need our continued help to feel that way and know that they're valued members of society. And I get to deal with a lot of marginalized people throughout the day being in downtown Beverly, and I try to do that on a daily basis. So thank you, everyone. And Councilor Rand, great idea. Most people stuck to the one sentence rule that you imposed, but thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Now on to our regular council business. We have a 7:10 public hearing. Ms. Kent, could you please read that order?
Order number 109, order that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, June 1st, 2020 at 7:10 p.m. remote on Google Meet, live stream on BevCam, relative to the petition from National Grid for plan number 297-35796 William Street. And this was in the paper on Thursday, May 21st. Sabita,
Is there somebody here from National Grid? Ms. Kent?
I believe Sabita is here. She was invited here.
Hello, yes, I am here.
Hey, Sabita. Thanks for
Hi,
being
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. This is to provide service to a two-lot URD at the property of 53 William Street and 51 William Street in Beverly.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? This is in Ward 1. Councilor Rotundo, do you have any questions or concerns on this?
I do not, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any other members of the council have questions? Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this? I will ask my usual question to Sabithia. Has the work already been done?
Not to my knowledge, no. And I need to make a correction. That's 53 to 57 William Street.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to close our public hearing and confirm that request.
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Come on, second always has to come after so moved, and we need a roll call, Ms. Kent.
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Houseman,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Yes.
and Guanci.
Yes, so that passes 9-0. Okay, just a matter of information on what direction we're going to go for the rest of the evening. We have one more public hearing we'll take care of. Then we will hear from our public speakers. We have Kaja Johnson from the Human Rights Committee and 3 people from the Farmers Market. After that, we'll hear from Powers and Sullivan, our audit firm that takes a look at our books every year. And then we will deal with a resolution from Councilors Rand and Flowers. So that said, Ms. Kent, could we please call to order the 7:15 public hearing on order number 105? Could you please read that?
Order number 105, order that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, June 1st, 2020 at 7:15 p.m. remote on Google Meet, live stream on BevCam, relative to the mayor's request to transfer $567,000 to pay down existing loan. And this was in the newspaper on Thursday, May 21st.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. And I think this is a financial matter, so we'll ask Brian Ailes to comment on it, our City Finance Director. Mr. Ailes? Put the mic on. Technical difficulties at the heirs, at the Ailes house? Mayor Cahill, would you like to comment while we're trying to get in touch with Mr. Ailes?
So I'm as best I understand, this is an attempt to refinance to lower interest, is it not? Well, remind me this one.
I'm on my phone now, so can
Oh,
you hear me
great.
now?
We can hear you, Mr. Ailes.
Great. I don't know. I'm having some technical difficulties with my computer. But this authorization or this request for a transfer is effectively to pay down a loan authorization on the parking and downtown kiosk purchases that were done over the last year and a half. The original authorization was for a $1.2 million borrowing. In June of last year, June of 2019, we took out a short-term borrowing, considered a ban, for $860,000 to pay for those costs. The ban is now due this June, and we'd like to pay down the outstanding balance on it to create debt capacity within our debt budget to layer in the police station debt. This was first presented to the council back, actually it was the previous council, this past fall as part of the plan to fund the police station and the $24 million debt associated with that. So this is an effort to pay down the existing outstanding debt to create capacity within the debt budget.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes.
Sure.
Do any members of the city council have a question? Type me in the chat. Councilor Ames.
Thank you very much. So if I understand you correctly, you are saying that the short-term note is due and that you would like to pay down $567,000 off of this, and then an additional, the balance would be next year?
That's correct, Councilor.
And is this, where is that $567,000? Is that monies that could be spent other ways if it were you continued to have a longer term debt with it?
So the original budget, these funds, that's a great question, have already been appropriated in the existing budget. They were appropriated into the short-term interest category of our debt budget. And we placed it there at the beginning of last fiscal year with anticipation that we may borrow long-term for a significant amount of outstanding short-term notes. And if we were to do that, we would have had some short-term or some longer-term interest payments that needed to be budgeted and funds set aside for. Because the middle school has still not finished through the MSBA audit process, we're unable to permanently borrow the outstanding bans. So these funds are no longer needed for the interest portion of those permanent borrowings and are available to reduce down the principal, ultimately creating significant capacity in the debt budget to layer in the debt associated with the police station, if that answers your question.
It does. I have to say, though, that I have not heard from the administration really anything about this budget coming up. And I don't even have a solid date or time when that would come. And personally, for me, it feels like I were to go out and buy a house, not sure what the mortgage was going to be, and to get a better rate, go and say, I'm going to pay down my car loan. And at the same time, I'm going to have to take a 25% income hit because my company is not doing well. And down the road, my refrigerator dies and I have no cash to pay for it. So while I respect that you're worried about the long-term bond rating, I think that we have in the next year a significant shortfall. And personally, my opinion is that we ought to be hanging on to every dollar that we can to deal with the needs, which are going to be more considerable for the people of this city, whether they be veterans or seniors or the school department or anyone else, then think about long-term or short-term debt. And that's just how I feel about that.
Maybe if I could, Mr. President, just to clarify a little bit so you make sure that all the counselors and the people at home fully understand what's actually we're trying to do here. It is in the same vein as your comments, Counselor Ames, where we are conscious of future obligations in future years. And this particular loan is targeted to be paid down because we can only borrow long-term for 5 years for this equipment. So effectively, if we were to borrow for it, mind you, we've already spent the money because it was authorized 1.5 years ago. The project was done. If we were to borrow for 5 years for this, you're basically paying about $200,000 a year, and that will hit every budget for the next 5 years. We have also committed to building the new police station. And when we bring on that, which is $24 million in debt, that has a payback period of about 30 years. And so in order to create the capacity within our budget, we need to make sure that we create this basically budgetary capacity in the debt budget to layer in the police station component. If we do not, then the budgets will raise by $200,000 for the next 5 years. And that creates a pinch through the next 3 years because that's kind of a peak of our debt schedules before significant school debt falls off. So this is an effort to get us through that hump without creating additional pressure on the operating budget, thus creating more capacity to address the ongoing needs that you mentioned and are concerned about. We share that concern with you, Counselor.
And honestly, Mr. Ailes and Mr. Mayor, I can understand that, but I'm sitting here right now talking to you without any understanding whether you're going to run a 1/12 budget. I don't understand where that budget is going to lie. I have no fiscal input from the administration, and I do not in any sense feel comfortable supporting a transfer of $567,000 for a debt to be paid off in this financial atmosphere. I just find it, I don't have enough information by any stretch to be able to support this.
Councilor Ames, if I could interject, Mr. Ailes and I just finalized that he would have the budget for us on Thursday. So we will have a special meeting on Thursday, June 4th at 7 p.m., which Ms. Kent will post tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Kayla would like to speak, and then I'll go back to the city councils.
Thanks, Mr. President. Councilor Ames, if I could just apologize for a sec. We have kind of had our heads down and we've been trying to get the budget ready to present to you folks. And so really an oversight, and not one that we should have made, is to really have given you all a heads up over the last couple of weeks. That's what we've been trying to do. We did make the decision several weeks, well, probably about 3-4 weeks ago, that a 1/12 budget really wasn't going to make sense. Most of the communities around here have made the same decision and are moving forward with their budget processes, making best projections based on both past history with the last 2 recessions, as well as indications we've gotten from meetings with state fiscal leaders of both in the administration's financial agencies, as well as from the governor and the legislature. So we've been putting all that together. And yes, in fact, as the council president just said, we are bringing it forward to you folks Thursday night. So sorry that's the first time that you're really becoming aware of that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilor Houseman.
Yes, I would just like to hear on this subject from our budget analyst. I know he's written a memo on this, but if he could respond to the very reasonable issues that Council Ames raised and try to put what the administration is requesting in context, I think that might be helpful for our conversation and consideration.
And that was on my list of things to do. So we'll go to Jared Perry, who is our City Council budget analyst. Mr. Perry.
Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening, members of the council. Thank you for inviting me as always. As you know, I forwarded a memo on May 27th with regard to this request here. To give it a bit of context, and maybe for some of the veteran city councilors, you may recall, it was back on June 18th of 2018, the then city council appropriated 1.2 million for these kiosks. And as some of you may recall, back at that time, presentation was made, there was an amount of revenue that could be generated for the city by doing this, and we did it on a loan. However, at the time, I think I articulated to you, and I think Mr. Ailes articulated to you, the intention was to try to pay this down as soon as possible, because as part of our capital spending plan and looking at our debt, we wanted to get this off the books as soon as possible, because we were trying desperately to try at that time figure out a way to fit in a police station project and being mindful of the middle school debt that was already committed several years ago to make this all work on our debt schedule. I think you've heard from me, as the council has certainly heard from me the last several years, of my concern on debt in general. It's a little higher than I'd like it to be, but we try to monitor that. That said, and I appreciate Councilor Ames's comments, because I think they're well put there. The strategy here, which I was aware of, certainly I know many others may have been aware of, was to try to pay this down certainly before we went to permanent borrowing for both the police station and for the middle school. So as you saw, hopefully from my memo, there is sufficient funds, $567,000 in, as I understand it, the long-term interest budget that will be transferred into the short-term budget there. There'll be approximately $293,000 left to be paid off. In conversations with the finance director, he informs me that that will be part of the FY21 budget process, which I myself am looking forward to seeing. I haven't seen anything yet. I can share with you that this was something it's been part of the plan all along. In my opinion, as I articulated in my memorandum to you back on the 27th, I think it's a wise decision. I am recommending that the council do this. The main reason I'm agreeing with the finance director in this, we want to bring our debt down. And by doing this, we bring our debt down here. If we hold on to this money and use it for anything else, what we're going to do is have, as Mr. Ailes indicated, 5 years of $200 and some odd thousand, which we're going to have to cut from the budget, not only in FY21 and future years. And the other thing I would share, and then I'm more than happy to answer any questions, in fairness to Councilor Ames, she's right, I'm still waiting for the budget myself. However, I've had probably in the last month at least a half a dozen conversations with Mr. Ailes about the budget, mostly looking at revenues constantly. The reason I haven't really sent anything out yet, because I haven't received the budget. However, it's my understanding, consistent with what His Honor the Mayor indicated, that they're going to not do the 112 budget. They're going to come forward with a budget that will do the entire fiscal year during the month of June, consistent with the council president's scheduling of public hearings. As soon as I get my hands on the expenditure side of things, I will give my traditional report. I have to talk to the council president when I will speak to the council on that, which may be a week from tomorrow night. But the bottom line to it is, this is part of all our overall strategy of the city to make everything fit like a jigsaw puzzle. It is my opinion that paying this down is the right decision. I recommend it, and I think it will help us for not only the FY21 budget, but also with regards to future budgets as well. And then one final comment, because Council Ames is raising a lot of very good issues. Obviously, part of the strategy, I guess, given a little snapshot going forward about future years, We will be, I believe, I haven't seen it yet, but in my dialogue with the finance director, we are going to be using our rainy day fund to try to balance the budget. I'm optimistic, though I can't confirm it yet, that it'll be a budget that'll make the city proud. I think we'll hopefully be able to hold on to most, if not all, of our current services. And obviously, as soon as I get my hands on the budget, I will forward it. I will be scrambling to do this. Unfortunately, this seems to be what happens a lot with these budgets. It's the last second, and the COVID stuff makes it more difficult. But bottom line to the 9 of you is, it's my recommendation to approve this transfer, and I think it's the right decision. And I'm more than happy, Mr. President, to answer any questions you or your colleagues may have.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Councilor Ames.
Mr. Perry, I appreciate your comments, and I understand and appreciate the fact that you and that the administration have a long-term plan. But I truly believe that it's irresponsible with an estimated $6 billion state shortfall and the Washington dragging its heels, not for us to right now, especially with no idea really what is in that budget. I'm not sure when it was due to us, but I don't have it for us tonight to take a vote on this, because the last thing I would want to do would be to have to look at street paving, veteran services, senior services in the next few weeks and see a budget that is cut or employees that are laid off that these funds could work towards. This is worse than 2008. There are 6,300 people out of work in this city right now. They are going to have to dip into their savings, many of them, to have to pay their property taxes. And we need to provide them, when they're in such need, with as many services as humanly possible. And I think we need to worry about this year today. And while I commend you for the forward-looking vision that generally comes out of this administration, not this year, sir. Just not. I can't abide by it.
Okay, thank you. If I may, thank you for that. Obviously, I give my advice, and you vote, your conscience, and I respect that completely. The only thing I'd say to that, based on my knowledge of the budgetary process, not only here in Beverly, but certainly municipal government in general, it's my view that if we do not transfer this, then the liability stays on the books, and we're going to have to reduce the budget for FY21 by approximately $200,000 next year. By transferring these funds, you'll see a reduction in what is known as, I've said this many times, the undesignated fund balance at the close of this fiscal year. But again, if we do not transfer this, that's my view. I think Mr. Ailes would confirm that with me. We'd have to cut the budget. You're actually going to cut the budget next year, in my view, if you don't do this transfer. And that's my professional opinion.
Thank you. Councilor Ames, to respond?
I understand, but I think minimally, this vote ought to be postponed until we look at the entire picture and not take it in a bubble. Thank you.
The only thing I'd share with that, which is fine, we have to transfer this by June 30th, just for legally. You have no choice. If you want to postpone it at the end of the month, that's between you and certainly your colleagues. But I want you to be, from a legal perspective, you would have to wait to get it done by June 30th. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Houseman.
Well, that sort of anticipates what I wanted to speak to, which is what the time sensitivity is here in terms of the council having an opportunity to receive the administration's budget and view this question in the context of actuality, given that the finance director indicates that this budget will be coming to us within a matter of days. We would have it before our next council meeting and could have the opportunity to not speculate upon what the budget's going to be like and how and what this expenditure would look like in terms of impact on the budget, but could deal with actual numbers. I think that's, if there is no sensitivity beyond a June 30th date, it seems to me that we have the opportunity to to examine this in the context of real numbers.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Perry, just for an understanding of my process of this, basically is if we voted we'd be kicking the debt down the road for the next 5 years, how I'm understanding. So many years we got without the budget. Potentially create some sort of a debt in future budgets if we don't transfer this funding over. Is that my understanding correctly, or am I not understanding that properly?
No, that's pretty much it. Well, simply put, what we're trying to do is pay off the mortgage and take the mortgage off the table so that we don't have to pay for the mortgage over the next 5 years, as the finance director stated. If we don't pay this off today, what would happen? Let's say if you didn't do it by June 30th, this 567 would roll to the undesignated fund balance. It would turn into free cash. And then we would have to go out to the market and borrow for 5 years. We're committed to the debt. We have to do that because the council voted the 1.2 million on June 18th of 2018. So, yeah, simply put, you do have it correct, Councilor. It's just I think it's wise to pay the mortgage off now, or at least by June 30th. Again, I like Councilor Ames indicated, and I agree with her. I haven't seen the budget either. But I have the parameters of what I believe the budget's going to be. I haven't got the details yet, but if we don't pay off the mortgage, we're going to have to come up with $200,000, which I believe that the mayor has not placed in the budget for FY21 with the hopes that this would be transferred. So we would have to make adjustments if in fact, or certainly you have every right to, delay it too, but again, you'd have to get it done by June 30th. So whatever the wishes of the councilor, those are your options from my perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Councilor Flowers.
Thank you. In listening to this conversation, it strikes me I am also supportive of both Councilor Ames and Councilor Houseman's suggestion. If there is no time sensitivity, it seems all things being equal, being able to look at the budget and consider this request transfer in that scope, especially because, as Councilor Houseman rightly notes, we would be able to look at it in that with those parameters by our next regular council meeting. So I would be supportive of that. And Mr. Perry, I respect absolutely what you're saying, that you have a sense of what the parameters will be. I think given that the budget is anticipated within the next days, it seems that the council having those numbers to look at only gives us more information to work with.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes.
Thank you. I do want to add, unfortunately, a layer of complexity around the time frame of this, but it's important that we all do understand what's at stake. I regret that, we don't have a luxury of waiting to June 30th to make a decision. Unfortunately, depending upon how the council votes this, it will affect how much we borrow next week during the short-term borrowing. We've already got the paperwork drafted and it's ready to go to market next week. So if this were not approved, we would need to borrow short-term an additional $567,000, which we can do, no problem. Or if it were approved, then we would borrow that much less this coming week. But we do have bands from last year that are coming due that need to be paid off and refinanced. So it does add some importance to the time frame of the decision, whichever way it goes.
Thank you. Any other members of the council who wish to comment? Councilor Flaherty.
With that said, I understand where Council Ames is coming from, but with the time frame, I think we have to put a little bit of trust into the administration and to Jerry Perry of the direction they're trying to go in with this. I understand it's a tight time frame, and these are difficult times, and we sometimes have to make some judgment calls. And when we do have the budget, I mean, I really don't see us cutting $200,000 out of the budget when it actually does come. I know this is a difficult decision, and sometimes it has to be a little bit of trust. But with the, and I would have been able to wait. But what Brian Ailes just told us about the time frame, I think we do need to move forward. Maybe in the future, when we do have this tight time frame, maybe the administration can kind of give us that information about why we need to vote on this and how important it is on this time frame. If that would help, and maybe Jerry Perry could help with that as well. But the time frame is what it is, and I think we need to kind of move forward. And the last thing I want to do is be up against it if we had to do this on June 29th. But that's not even the time frame right now. What Brian Ailes was telling us, so I would move the question.
Anybody else have anything to say from members of the city council?
Mr. President, if I may.
Of course, Mr. Perry.
Just for everyone's edification, I was not aware that they were going out to the market next week, which brings just one more piece of information. If we do delay this, it will cost the city more money because he'll have to go out and borrow for the 567. We're gonna have to pay interest on that. So the delaying it even, again, I wasn't aware that they were going out to the market next week, but it's important that the council know if you do delay it, it will cost us even more money. So I just feel that it's important that the council be aware of that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this issue? Anybody? Councilor Rand, please.
Thank you. Just a quick clarifying question. I understand that this has to be done before the applications for the borrowing. Is there a reason why we could not vote on it on Thursday?
What is Thursday, guys?
Well, I mean, Thursday we're going to get the budget. We're not all going to look through the budget and then be able to vote on it. I think if people are stuck about not voting for this now, I don't think they'll have any more comfort on Thursday.
Got it.
I tend to agree with Council Flaherty's comments. We have a budget analyst who's independent. We have our finance director who's really has never steered us wrong, trying to save the city money. So if nobody has anything to say, but Mayor Canley would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess what I'd like to do is see, are there things that any of you councilors feel that it would be helpful to know about what the budget's going to look like when we submit it Thursday? It's pretty much ready for you. It's a question of getting it. There are a couple of kind of final details to check off, and then it's about getting it ready to print. So I can say that I'm trying to remember what some of the concerns Councilor Ames raised, but you all know that the school committee voted to approve its budget, and its budget provides for, well, let me just say the assumptions in the budget around local aid are that we're going to get a 17.5% cut in local aid. Now we were originally talking 15%. Some of the signs we were seeing and hearing had Mr. Ailes thinking we needed to be a bit more conservative than that. Hopefully that is that's accurate or even more conservative than needed, but it seems to be in the ballpark. With that said, we as we put the budget together, we're able to identify the revenues between revenues and reserves to fill that gap in 17.5% local aid cut on the school and city side, and increase the school budget beyond that by $1.4 million. That's what was passed at the school committee level. On the city side, we're benefiting from a 1-year decrease in debt service that we know will only last for FY21 because we anticipate bring between some old debt coming offline, meaning being fully paid off, and some new debt being issued. We're looking at, I know it's over $2 million in additional debt service in FY22. But in FY21, there's a bit of relief there. So between that and belt tightening throughout all of our departments, and tapping reserves and we believe a responsible way, we are able to present a budget on Thursday evening that includes no layoffs. So that's important. And I believe, Mr. Ailes, why don't I leave it there and see if councilors have any other specifics, and maybe you can help elaborate as they may have a question or two.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilor Ames, you're up.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mayor Cahill. Generally, when is the budget supposed to be delivered to the council?
Usually the last.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It's typically the last week of May. This year, I think that we've all been very good to give the administration a little leeway.
It's been a tough year.
Right. That's why I don't have a problem with getting it on June 4th as opposed to, say, May 28th. And the fact that we're getting a full budget, not a 1/12 budget, means that the mayor and Brian Ailes and their whole finance team have been working pretty diligently on it.
I concur. I mean, I still would like to be able to look at that budget and due diligence, and I appreciate you answering my questions, Mr. Mayor. And I almost proposed that a special meeting for next Monday for a vote and to be able to take a look at the budget and make sure it makes sense. I am just personally loath to see this money that citizens in this council might think ought to be available for a different reason this year. And while I understand saving the city some money long term is a great thing, but this year cash is king.
Mr. President, if I could,
of course.
And I'll ask Mr. Ailes to speak on this as well. We have worked incredibly hard. I say we. Look, it's every department head. It's every person within departments who help the department heads get it done. Mr. Ailes has been incredible, with the school department, there's been a lot of good work done as well. Everybody's worked really hard to, ever since this all started coming clear in mid-March, everybody's worked really hard to figure out where to find savings in FY20 and how to turn back some funds so that they'd be available in FY21 or after free cash certification. So that's been ongoing, and so between that and all the work people have done to determine how to be as streamlined as possible, how to really take a hard look at things that, I don't think anybody's had bloated budgets. I don't believe that. But looking to see, where we can scale back for the time being. I think a lot of good work has been gone on there, both for the last 3.5 months of FY20 and looking ahead to FY21. So I think, Councilor, we're in a bit better place on all of that than you might fear. And I just see if Mr. Ailes wants to add to that at all.
Mr. Ailes?
No, I think you summed it up accurately, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for.
And I think that Councilor Houseman has something to say.
Well, again, my question is somewhat anticipated, which was essentially that if the budget was coming on Thursday, maybe we could hear some kind of summary about what it looks like to place the decision in some context. I mean, having been on the council as long as I have been and watched the skill of Mr. Ailes, although, I certainly agree with Councilor Ames. I want to make my decisions based upon hard numbers right in front of me rather than what's anticipated. But I also agree with both you, Council President, and Councilor Flaherty that between our budget analyst and Mr. Ailes, we have a history of very solid financial management and advice that we can rely on if we are sort of stuck. I am reluctant to put the additional burden on the budget that would result from what's being described if we don't pass this request of the ordinance. I don't like being sort of put in a box, however. So if push comes to shove, I will vote in favor of the administration's request. But you know, if it's the will of the council to hold a special meeting next Monday to give us more time, that would be dependent, I assume, on getting a quick analysis from our budget analyst between now and between Thursday when the budget comes out and any kind of special meeting. So I think it's fair to inquire on how realistic that additional information would be able to give Mr. Perry the ability to sort of analyze the situation we're in to decide whether this still makes sense at that point.
Mr. Ailes? Mr. Ailes? Just a question for me. You said you were going out to borrow later this week?
I thought it was next week.
I thought he said later this week. He's not with us though right now.
It looks like his screen is frozen, Mr. President. I think that what he said is that it's going to market this Wednesday.
Right.
So if I could one more time, Mr. President. Folks, I've got to tell you, I don't like that you're in this position. I apologize. This is not how we try to do things. I think, you know, we've fallen victim to the just the volume of work that's needed to be done to get us to here. You know, we tried to be decisive in making the decision not to rely on 1/12 budgets and to move forward, but it took some time to gather the information to do that. That said, I don't want to say that as an excuse. I don't like that you have this unease. If there's anything more that we can tell you tonight, Councilor Ames, you had asked about, or you had mentioned a concern with road and sidewalk funding. We can give you the number right now on that, Mr. Ailes. I think I see him back in the picture. We can get that. I don't have it in my head, but I remember seeing it on a page a day or two ago. And it is a lesser amount than FY20, but still a strong amount. I'm waiting for Mr. Ailes, but I think he may be trying to get back on the line.
Mr. Ailes, you back with us?
I'm here.
Mr.
Yeah,
Ailes,
sorry,
I just want to make sure you share everything you can.
The road and sidewalk. I'm sorry?
We're looking for the road and sidewalk numbers for this year coming up, FY21.
So we're expecting a typical chapter 90 allotment, which is about $1 million, 1.1. And then in addition to that, city money of 1.4 million.
And how's that compared to this year? I'm trying to remember. Was it's about 250 less?
So this year was the highest year we've had in recent history at 1.75. And that was higher than the previous year, which was 1.5. So we've always typically hovered around the 1.5. Last year, we enjoyed the luxury of being able to bump that up to 250,000, and now we've pulled it back down.
And that's above and beyond the Chapter 90 money.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ailes. Your Honor, do you have anything else, or can I go to Councilor Flaherty?
Just want to try to answer any questions that remain if it can be helpful.
Please don't go anywhere. Councilor Flaherty.
I actually would like to move the question because I understand where Council Ames is coming from, trying to move it to Monday, but I'm not too sure what more information we're going to see come in the next few days. So I'd like to move the question. I appreciate where she's coming from, but I also understand what we need to do here before us.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Ames?
I have one last question about the budget. and that's concerning the elections in September and November. As you know, we have generally elderly poll workers. It's a presidential year. There's COVID going on, so the cost for this election will be much higher than normal. And have you made room for that in the budget?
Mr. Ailes?
Mr. President, if I could,
So
I'm
that's
not
a great
sure-
question. Yes, and Mr. Mayor, feel free to chime in.
Well, yeah, I just want to leave with, I'm not sure it's a, Councilor Ames, with respect, I'm not sure that there's an assumption that it's going to cost more than is budgeted. We don't know yet whether whether either one or both of those elections may have a mail-in component or not. Certainly there'll be early voting. We anticipate some logistical challenges, such as needing to find poll workers to take the place of some of our regular poll workers who may feel less comfortable working at an in-person polling place, because there's the census on our poll workers is that they tend to be a bit more mature in years. But I don't know, I don't know if there are any assumptions on the total budget needed. But Mr. Ailes, you got a better sense of what's in the budget.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as far as a typical funding level goes, it's basically what would typically be required for the number of elections scheduled for next year. In addition to that, because of the events we're dealing with and the COVID and the related, precautions and added things we may need to put in place, the state has released funds to the city to be used for any out of the ordinary type costs related to COVID. And that amount is significant, and we're working through how best to utilize that, but it would be more than enough to cover any increase in costs related to elections.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes. Councilor Flaherty?
Yes, I'll try to be quick here. I also think what we can do to answer some of Council Ames's concerns, maybe Mr. Ailes can answer this. If we pass the budget, is there something that we can do to put some contingencies on that to say that we don't, if we approve something in a particular department, that, like for hiring, for example, that we can delay some of the spending until maybe December to make sure that we get through that fall in case we do have some increased spendings or if COVID kind of goes in a different direction, when there's some other costs that we incur that we're not too sure of, that we can kind of postpone a few things until December, January, instead of spending them in the fall.
Mr. Ailes?
Great point, Councilor. Yes, we will absolutely be having contingent plans that we're working through to basically delay some of the potential funding or the potential expenses. And that's both to guard against unforeseen expenditures that may occur that aren't covered by the multi-million dollars that will be coming from the state to support our COVID expenses, but also if our revenue streams begin to soften greater than we're anticipating. And we'll present that as part of our budget presentation later this week as kind of a plan contingency.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes. Councilor Flaherty, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Does anybody else have anything to add? Members of the City Council? If not, I'm going to close our public hearing. Well, I'll entertain a motion to close our public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ames?
This is to close the hearing? Yes.
Yeah. Feldman?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Frady's?
Yes.
Husband?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
Guanci?
Yes. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request for this transfer.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Kent?
Ames?
No.
Feldman?
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Frady's,
Yes.
Houseman,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Yes.
Guanci.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ailes and Mayor Cahill, and thank you to the entire city council for all your comments. Now we have a couple of public speakers. And I have Kaja Johnson, who is from the Human Rights Committee. Ms. Johnson, are you still with us?
I am.
Thank you for waiting.
Hi, my name is Keisha. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a Beverly resident as well as a member of the Human Rights Committee. I first want to start off by thanking each and every one of you for everything that you do, and especially for taking the time out to listen to me tonight. I ask that you please open your hearts and minds to just take a walk with me. This week for me has meant sleepless nights, tears, alienation, fear, disappointment, powerlessness, shame, oppression, embarrassment, helplessness, defeat, sorrow, anger, doom, and last, some loss of inspiration and hope. These are all emotions I know all too well. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who would tell me story after story about how she grew up in Lake City, South Carolina, back in the 30s. I teach her how to read and write, and she'd teach me how to protect myself by being silent and compliant. It was not until I got a little older that I realized that she didn't know how to read and write because she never had the opportunity to learn. And it wasn't until I got a little older than that that I realized her being silent was a response to her fear of white police officers, fear of white people, but most of all, fear of death. If my great-grandmother had to teach my grandmother, who taught my mother, who taught me how to protect myself from police, my question is, will I or will I not have to have the same exact conversation with my son and daughter? This depends on you. Martin Luther King Jr. said, silence is compliance. Is anyone listening tonight ready to speak up and stand next to me today? Barack Obama said, our journey is not complete until our children, from the streets of Detroit to the hills of Appalachia, to the quiet lanes of Newtown, know that they are cared for and cherished and always safe from harm. My initial thought after receiving the news about George Floyd was, I have to get my children out of here. I have to protect my children. I have to keep them safe because this is my job at the bare minimum. But then I thought, where can we go? Where can we go where we are safe? And where can we go to live without fear? And why can't this place be Beverly, Massachusetts? I can't do this alone, and I need help. We need help. A Nebraska police sergeant said, it's all of us versus bad people and bad cops, and we want to get them out of the line of duty. Can we get them out of the line of duty in Beverly, Mass, if applicable? Systematic racism is real. The death rate of Black men, Black people in America by the hands of police officers is far too high. These are the people that we should be able to depend on to protect and serve us. If you do not or cannot recognize systematic racism, I urge you to research the numbers and educate yourselves as leaders. I believe what happened to George Floyd and so many other Black Americans can happen in Beverly if we do not make the possible impossible. What is our policy and procedure on complaints within the police department? Who is being held accountable and how? We need to fill the gap between the 18 complaints that they were made against Officer Derek Chauvin, and the police brutality, deaths, and riots. This gap has to be filled. Someone's not listening. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Riots are the language of the unheard." It's time that we're heard. The time is now. It shouldn't have to come to these desperate measures before people are being heard. If I am George Floyd on the ground for 8 minutes and 48 seconds, I want to know, what do I do? In Beverly, Massachusetts, what do I do that would save my life on the ground in that 8 minutes and 46 seconds? Where is my safety net? Where is there a safe word? Because the words I can't breathe. Please, don't kill me are not working. Those words are not working. All those words did was lead to fatality instead of safety. How do I get out? Help me get out. How can somebody watching and observing this happen be more comfortable taking out a phone and recording a death live than intervening and saving a human being? People are afraid to help one another. We have to do better. Just like we have an obligation to report child abuse or an obligation to perform CPR if you know how on an individual in need, we have an obligation to save a Black person's life if they are in need. I want to know what is being put in place for police officers to become even more connected with the Black community, other parts of the community even, who may not feel included. How can we get police officers out of their cruises, on the streets, walking, bikes, walking up to basketball courts and introducing themselves to kids, shaking their hands, getting to know them, getting to know me, getting to know my kids? Anything besides the obvious. We have to stop pretending that color is not there, because it is. We need to talk about it. Miami-Dade Corrections spokesman Juan Desgranado said, as leaders of this profession, we, chiefs, and community must all do better at improving our training and protocols so that our efforts towards building and maintaining community trust are not lost or overshadowed. Beverly Police, I want to trust you, and I want you to trust me. But at the very least, we should not fear each other. In order to make this action instead of words, city councilors, we need resources. In time, it is as crucial to success. Like we've made room for sidewalks and new restaurants and master plans, etc., we need to make room to save lives. Can we put some money aside into saving a Black life? How much is a Black person's life even worth? Immediately, I feel like these are some things we can do. One, in response to the death of George Floyd, I believe at the very minimum, officers need to publicly, proudly, and loudly show their support for the Black community. Some ideas include taking a knee for 8 minutes, 46 seconds, total time George Floyd was on the ground fighting for his life, restating vows or oaths, or even altogether stating unity is our community. Whatever it is, it needs to be bold, it needs to be loud, and it needs to make my kids feel like they are not and will never be George Floyd. Not here, not in the city of Beverly, not in this city, because this city, I hope, will be their safety net. Miami-Dade Corrections spokesman Juan Desgranado said, transparency during this time is key to demonstrating law enforcement's commitment to serving and protecting our residents with dignity, humanity, and respect. Two, I think we should place a Black Lives Matter sign either at the police station or City Hall. If you don't know or understand what this means, think of it as a symbol, like a rainbow for the LGBTQIA community, or maybe a puzzle piece for autism awareness. Educate yourself. All lives cannot matter until Black Lives Matter as well. Please help me. Help us be included in all. City councilors, I ask you why these two things can't be done now. What have we been doing to support the Black community in Beverly? What can we do in the future as preventative measures so that the Black community is being included, heard, supported, validated? A few long-term goals that I think would be beneficial. I think we need to, 1, create room in the budget to save lives. Give us time and resources for policies, training, development, and maybe even body cams for officers. Create an unbreakable policy for complaints within the police department that demands consequences and holds police officers accountable for acts of racism. Create training and development for police officers educating on systematic racism and police brutality. And lastly, create a bill that protects Black people and people of color in the Beverly community. Again, we need your help. I don't want to lose anymore. Let's win together. I don't care how little or big the action is, but please do anything but nothing. Thank you all for listening and learning. I appreciate you taking this walk with me because I know it isn't easy, comfortable, and it's different. Change is hard, but it's possible with each and every one of you. You lead Beverly. And maybe change won't happen for me, but I'm going to do everything possible to make sure change is possible for my children. If this can't happen immediately, I do understand that, but I would like some follow-up dates regarding my thoughts and questions and goals and ideas. Please give me a date to follow up by. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Thank you so much, Sarah. Lot to think about, guys. Let's see what we can do and work together. We are up to the farmers market, and who's going to speak on behalf of the farmers market? We have Andy Chevrier, Nori Gall, and Simone French. Nori, do you want to start?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to stop before I say much about the market and say thank you, Kaja, for sharing your experience and your thoughts. Those are all questions that are deeply essential in this moment. I'm here with Addie Schreffler and Simone French. Addie and I are the co-presidents of the board of the market, and Simone is a board member and also our market manager. We're here today specifically to share a bit about the market plan and for this coming season, and to ask the council to approve our ability to move forward. Over the past year, a number of folks have been meeting to look at the role of the farmers market in our community and how that can evolve into something a little bit larger. So right now we are operating the farmers market, and we're looking at that as part of the larger web that Beverly is in. The farmers market is a place that, well, all farmers markets, according to Charlie Baker, or Governor Baker, were deemed essential on March 23rd. And as somebody who lives, eats, and shops in Beverly, our market is essential to me and to my family. Addie and Simone will be sharing details of the safety plans that have been put in place, and I believe all of the counselors have received copies of those plans. We're also as an organization, centering the question of racial equity and how, as an organization, we can make sure that that is ever present in our meetings, in who is reflected at our table, and how the market can provide as much opportunity for as many people as possible in Beverly. I want to celebrate the fact that this is actually going to be our 12th season. And I'm really grateful, Councillor Guanci, and to the entire council for letting us be here, but we wouldn't be here without recused Councillor Rand, who has put years into this market, and it's a distinct honor to be able to be here reflecting any of the work that she's done in the past. The market serves a role in Beverly that brings producers of food locally to customers, gives my kid a chance to actually meet a farmer, something that was not my experience growing up in Beverly. And it is an essential link downtown that has provided a lot of, I think, the vision for growth and understanding that Rantoul Street could be a lot more than Rantoul Street perhaps had been. And we'd like to continue to support that tradition and to continue to grow and support our local food network as times are insecure and shifting. Having as much opportunity for people locally to raise food and sell it and to access food locally is essential. So again, we're here because we'd like to be able to start the market on June 15th. And what I'm going to do now, hopefully, is turn this over to my co-president, Addie Schreffler, who will talk a little bit more about how we're addressing COVID-19 and also how we're centering our work around racial equity.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Addie, are you here somewhere with us?
I'm here. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you very much for having us on here. It's a pleasure to be part of the meeting and to listen to all the intricacies that make up Beverly. So my name is Adeline Schreffler. I'm a resident here in Beverly and co-president of the Beverly Farmers Market Board. I'm also a farmer, and I've been working in agriculture for about 5 years now. So it's been a great opportunity to become part of such an incredible board that is housing the market as one of its first missions. So as the larger nonprofit, our focus is on building a more resilient community here in Beverly by providing equitable access to sustainably grown, nutritious food. Within the farmers market, we're continuing to focus on access to local food by maintaining our commitment to SNAP, to accept SNAP, EBT, WIC, farmers market nutritional program coupons, and senior coupons as well. We are also a distribution center for 2 CSA programs that distribute here in Beverly, and that's an essential service. And we're really proud that we can offer farmers the ability to distribute safely within the city. Also, in order to address racial inequality in our community, our board decided to participate in the racial equity challenge that was put out by the Food Solutions of New England to make sure that our founding principles were guided by understanding how to build a safe and welcoming environment for all who choose to participate and be part of the community that we're hoping to build. I encourage everyone to check out the Racial Equity Challenge. It was really moving and really informative on how to build a community that supports all of its residents. Regarding public safety and the market response to COVID-19, we began our discussion of public safety after Governor Baker's order declaring farmers markets to be essential businesses. Since that time, I've participated in several forums held by the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources and also formed a regional network of market managers to talk about how to support each other and create safety plans that were comprehensive, specific to our areas. And I will turn it over to Simone French, who is our market manager, to discuss the details. Thank you very much.
Simone, before we go to you, Councilor Feldman, thanks for reminding me. She sent me an email this afternoon to let me know that the Cub Scouts from Pac 4 are listening and watching in for their government badge. I apologize for, I had the note written down and I didn't do it, but Council Feldman, thank you. You, as you know, you are a liaison to the Boy Scouts, so keep up the good work.
Unofficial.
Unofficial. Now I'm going to appoint you officially, okay?
Okay, sure. I have scouts.
Thanks. You picked. You actually picked a great movie a great meeting to participate in. So we'll go to Simone French.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for having us and giving us your time today. As Addie and Nori said, I'm the market manager this year, and I am a Beverly resident. I grew up here, and I'm still living here. And I'd like to talk a little bit about our safety plan and the key changes that we've made to ensure our market is safe and we can still hopefully run it this year. So some of the key changes that we've made to the plan is making sure that people can still shop for their fresh local food while still being able to maintain social distancing. Some of the changes that we've made are ensuring that market traffic flows in one direction and that there's a set entrance point and there's a set exit point to the market, and that we have volunteers at the entrance and exit points to ensure that the amount of shoppers in the market maintains a low number so that people don't overcrowd and get too close together. We also have 2 teams of volunteers, and we're hoping to limit the time these volunteers spend in the market to limit possible exposure to any germs or anything. And we're hoping that the volunteers can really help the market run smoothly and answer any questions that shoppers may have, and just make it still feel like a safe, welcoming environment where people can find fresh local food, but still maintaining our customers, vendors, volunteers, and employee safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone.
Thank
Great
you very
stuff.
much.
Ladies, and I know Councilor Rand is always working behind the scenes for the farmers market. And I've spoken to her. She's been up to 2 in the morning all week trying to get things ready to go. And that's great. And you know, later on our agenda, there's a request to approve you folks to open your market on June 15th. And we'll take that up when we get to communications, applications, and petitions. Do any councilors have any questions or comments about the farmers market? Wow, you got off easy. Thank you for being here. Stay tuned. I don't foresee a problem approving your request if you guys want to check out, but we'll take care of it within the next hour or so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we are going to the very patient Mr. Jim Powers from Powers and Sullivan. He's been doing the audit for the city of Beverly for a number of years. Mr. Powers, good to see you.
Nice to see you, Councilor. How you doing today?
All good.
All good. Also with me is Renee Davis, other partner at our firm, and we're both here to discuss the fiscal year 19 audit. I am the background partner on the job, meaning I review everything, and Renee is the on-site auditor as part of that, in charge of the audit. And so what I'd like to do is, it's difficult for both of us to kind of speak at once in these type of meetings. I'm here to obviously answer any questions as you go through, but Renee is set to do the presentation, and we're both here to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Powers. Ms. Davis.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm going to just try to make sure I can see everybody here. As Jim mentioned, I was the engagement partner. So what we did, if you don't remember, we switched it up 2 years. This is my second year actually presenting in front of you as the engagement partner, which means I'm sort of the first line of defense or first reviewer of your audit work and your financial statements, with Jim's background doing the concurring review, he having a longer history with the city. And what we're going to do tonight is briefly go over the results of the fiscal year 2019 audit for the city. And we're going to talk a little bit just to prepare you based on the situation that we're in. We'll talk a little bit about COVID and what that's going to mean going forward for the audit and some of the things that will be impacting the city, what we're planning on doing, make sure everyone stays safe, and that we can still continue to do the audit work and deliver the product that you expect from us. So for fiscal year 2019, the audit, I have to say, it was a different time. It was a different situation. The audit went very smoothly. The city was able to submit a comprehensive annual financial report to the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. This was the 4th consecutive year that you've submitted that report. It went to them before December 31st, so everything was done for the audit and submitted before then. Last year's audit did earn a certificate and award from the GFOA. It's a certificate for excellence in financial reporting. That means that your financial statements are part of that report, but that your report is much more comprehensive than is required. It's a volunteer program, but is something that really is looked favorable upon for any local government. So each year you've gotten that award. We've submitted the 2019 award certificate on your behalf, and we are anticipating that once that is reviewed by the GFOA, you will get the same result. Again, the financial statements, the required note disclosures are all part of the CAFR, and they're included within the CAFR. Along with the comprehensive report, the city's financial position was very strong for fiscal year 2019, with a total, your general fund balance without stabilization was almost $14 million, $13.9 million, an increase of $1.3 million from the prior year. Your general stabilization fund was up to $12.6 million with $1 million in a debt service stabilization fund. We'll talk about this a little bit. I know it came up earlier. This is, you've been building on your stabilization funds, and I think a lot of emphasis was put on that through the adoption of some financial policies. Those strong financial policies are important, especially in this day and age, because now you have something to lean on. You actually had policies to help build that stabilization fund up for what we sometimes call a rainy day. And I think that we can all agree that this year it's raining. So going forward, I don't have the details of your new budget coming out. I know that there was conversation about this earlier. It would not be unusual for communities to draw down on some of those rainy day funds now to be able to maintain your services in a time that revenue may be less stable than it has been in the past, right? So we've been sort of bumping along with really strong revenue projections for the past several years. And suddenly at the end of 2020, we cut them off. So there could be some revenue issues ending out 2020, but certainly projecting going into 2021. We don't know what's going to happen when everything starts back up. And we have to be prepared that that this could happen again, right? That things may not go according to plan, and that we could have some bumps in revenue. So using your stabilization fund now to be able to maintain services and not have to cut is not looked unfavorably by the rating agencies, as long as you maintain those strong financial policies and you have a plan that we're going to use it because we saved it for this purpose. And now we're gonna have a plan in our budget to build those stabilization funds back up. So it's working the way you intended. This is an unanticipated event. You could not have budgeted for it. And those strong, $12.6 million put away in that fund is going to help you to get over this, hopefully short-term revenue problem coming up for the 2021 budget. So the results of the audit, we issued an modified audit opinion. That is a clean audit opinion. So based on all of our procedures, our testing of your records and your financial statements and disclosures, we gave you a clean or the best audit opinion that you could get, all that you could hope to obtain. Same thing with the audit of your federal grants. All of our opinions were unmodified. You had no material weaknesses. There were no significant deficiencies as part of the audit. There were also no new management letter comments identified. You do still have, there were 8 prior year comments. We did issue a management letter. We follow through on all of those prior year comments until they're all resolved. So of the 8 prior year comments, 2 have been completely resolved this year. 1 was partially resolved and 5 remain unresolved. So we'll continue to work with management and to follow those along. Most of the unresolved comments relate to some old general ledger balances or old financial statement balances. that need to be cleaned up. And one of them in particular related to an underreporting of accounts receivable at the retirement system. That was sort of an error in reporting it. This is the second year that happened, and management in your response has agreed to look into that in more detail going forward to make sure that that doesn't happen again for this fiscal year. As far as the audit of your federal funds, the city spent $5.8 million last year in federal grants. 2.6 million of that was in search and rescue programs. 1.3 was in special education grants. And what we are required to do as part of the federal audit is do a risk assessment of the grants and sort of alter them so that we're focusing and doing a deeper dive into different grants, different major grants in different years. Last year it was special education and that group of grants. And again, there were no findings related to the federal audit. We do expect that this year is going to be different related to the single audit because, as Mr. Ailes had indicated, it's state money coming, it's federal money being passed through the state, but you will have federal funds rolling into the city from several different sources, all starting from the federal government, some of it coming directly from the state, some coming from the Department of Education, FEMA money, all to help the city respond to the pandemic. Those funds will be a major focus of the audit. We want to make sure that we are available to you to help you when you're trying to figure out what's available and how you can spend those funds. I will say that some of the allowable costs or eligible costs and some of the guidance it's new and it's changing. A lot of the information has just come out over the past week or two, and I know that it's really tough timing because you're trying to plan your budget going forward and you don't exactly know what's going to be available to you to help this. But as far as accounting for it and helping to navigate that, we will be here to help you get through even as the rules are changing and the laws relating to these federal funds are changing. Again, the primary focus will be for the federal grants in 2020 and in fiscal 2021 to be able to make sure that you are prepared not only to spend these funds to the best of your ability based on the needs of Beverly. Every community is different, and what you had to do and had to spend to respond to this pandemic and what you need to do to be prepared should it come back again, or to be able to hold meetings remotely or to educate children remotely or to work from home. All of those things are new struggles that we're all trying to get through. We'll help you with it as you go through. We're trying to stay up on that. Again, it's changing daily and weekly, and we're trying to stay in touch with communities to let you know what's going on related to that. Also related to the audit and the ability to do the audit, I'm here in my office right now, but haven't been for a while. I know most of you are working from home right now, and this is different. So we are working to make sure that we can work with your people, that we can actually work with the people of the city to be able to do your audit remotely, or to do it in a way that you are very comfortable and safe. Most of it, because of technology right now, we're able to do, you're able to upload documents to us safely and securely through a portal. We're able to audit it and do, I'm going to say most, if not all of the work completely remotely. If that can't be done, we're working with communities to make sure that we are limiting any exposure, that we're practicing as safe as we can, right? Masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, and very much limiting any time that we're spending out at the client. We'll see how that goes going forward. We want to do what makes you safe and comfortable and what makes our people safe and comfortable. And it's really something that we haven't had to deal with in the past. We miss going out there and being able to spend time with your people. But for preliminary audit work for this year, we've certainly done it all remotely, and it's working out well so far. So we anticipate moving forward to be able to, again, to be able to work with you to do a lot of the work remotely. And if we need to go out there or need to do any inventory or something like that, that we have to be on site for, to be able to work with your people to do it safely as we can. Again, some of the things that will change this year, it was mentioned earlier in the meeting, you have to consider what revenues may or may not be going down next year. We don't know quite yet what the state is going to do. I think you're taking a pretty good conservative approach related to that. We just don't know because the numbers aren't out from the Commonwealth yet. This is going to impact your big long-term liabilities, right? So we know pension and OPEB are a huge focus of the audit because they have such a major impact on your financial statements, and the market's going to be down. Your funding schedules that you were planning on may change because depending on the timing of when the market comes back up, if the market comes back up, you're going to have to look at your plan. Your plan on your pension plan was to be fully funded by 2033. That had some planned, 4.45% increases in your appropriation every year. If the liability goes up, those funding schedules go up, and we're going to have to monitor that. Those, I expect some of them will be changed. Same with your reporting your liability for OPEB. Your OPEB funds, you had $866,000 in an OPEB trust fund that was invested in PRIT. Again, the market value is going to be down on those coming this year. And your unfunded liability of $340 million is going to be impacted by that. So we'll continue to work with you to make sure that you have the information that you need to make thoughtful and meaningful decisions related to how you're approaching those unfunded liabilities going forward. So just to summarize, the 19 audit went really well. We appreciate the work that your staff did to get that done. To do a CAFR, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of input that goes into that. They were very responsible for us. It takes a long time to get through that. We appreciate it. And we will be here for you to close out 2020 and to navigate some of the challenges that are going to be ahead for 2021 as you go through this budget process and really as the laws and the guidance from the state are coming out and impacting you. So with that, I will address any specific questions you may have.
Councilor Houseman.
Yes, thank you, Renee, for your report. I have a question about the, I'm not going to use probably the technically correct term, but the retirement committees, the issue with the retirement committee in terms of the balances that have 2 years in a row, not been reconciled. Again, I'm probably not using the correct terms, but I do recall the issue showing up previously in our budget analyst's report. I wonder if you could reflect sort of on the materiality of the fact that this has occurred twice in a row, and materiality of the sort of aggregate dollar amount that is in question here. Thank you.
Sure, I will. So what happened is there's a receivable that was misstated on the financial statements, and the same error happened 2 years in a row. As far as materiality, the reason it's not, it didn't change our opinion on your financial statement is because your assets in that fund are 127, almost $128 million. So the fact that they understated, you have a receivable recorded for just over $5 million. That receivable was understated. It's an entry that wasn't recorded properly at the end of the year. But again, it was a couple $100,000 out of almost $128 million. So it didn't materially impact those. And when I'm looking at the numbers, I apologize. I'm looking at pension and OPEB because they're reported together on your financial statements. But that column of the financial statements was not materially misstated. Does that address that question?
Yeah, if you could just repeat, because I think maybe you misspoke. Could you repeat as to the issue of materiality, the total amount, and then the amount that was misstated?
Sure, and hold on one second, because I'm just grabbing the exact amount. I don't have the phone. So the total amount that was misstated, the underreporting for this year was $419,000. So you had $419,000 of a receivable at the end of the year that was not reported in your ledgers.
Out of a total of how much?
$127.7 million.
But Renee, the financial statements were corrected as reported.
You're right, Jim. Sorry about
Right.
that.
It was just the internal financial statements that were off, Scott.
I see. Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then that goes to the materiality of the amount. What about the materiality of the fact that it was repeated 2 years in a row and, you know, sort of not picked up, initially made a mistake and then not picked up again and then repeated?
So, go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say the financial statements for both years were corrected, and that's what our opinions on. Again, it's just the internal reporting and the reporting to the Public Employees Retirement Administration Commissions were an error. I think we've talked enough to the retirement system and in Bryant as we went through this, and we don't expect that to occur again. But it was something that we believe should be brought up to make sure that the retirement system's financial statements are closed correctly and that mistake doesn't occur again. And obviously we'll find out soon enough because we'll be scheduling to do that audit relatively soon.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, the reason I asked the question is to hopefully drive home that we hope, as at least I as a counselor, you know, hope and expect that it won't reoccur. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Houseman, and I know that our budget analyst Jerry Perry has pointed that out. Councilor Raines?
Thank you. And thank you for presenting this and being here. I have two fairly quick questions, you'll be happy to see. I know that Mr. Perry is always telling us that for the financial forecast report needs to come out early to be of help to the budget process. And I was just curious about the timing of this audit report because and is this a normal delivery or was this delayed and you know, what is our hope in the future? And then the other piece, I would like the administration and you all to speak to the purchase order a piece of this on page 6 of the purchasing system, on page 6 of the management letter that speaks to that the city doesn't consistently use purchase orders and has not developed a formal procurement policy. And so I was just hoping you briefly tell us what you would hope that could come, especially moving forward where the budget will be tight and those kinds of controls are really vital in any operation. Thank you.
Renee, I'll address the timing of the report and you can handle the purchase order. The timing of the report, we did our work in the spring and presented the draft financial statements to city's management in the fall. A comprehensive annual financial report is due by December 31st. The date of our report and the date it was actually issued was December 24th, 2019, which is a normal timing for a municipality as we go through, especially with this comprehensive data. I think part of the problem we had right now is getting before the council on a timely basis. And I think everything kind of blew up with the COVID-19 even early on to get in. So this is unusual that we are this late reporting to the council, and we expect a quicker time frame, especially now that we can do this and legal to do this remotely if this still is in effect for fiscal year 20's audit. But I don't think we should have that type of delay, and obviously we apologize for that, but I think it's just what happened this year, if that answers your question, Counselor. And then Renee, you could take the purchase order piece.
Sure, I'll talk about the purchase orders. I will just add to what Jim said. I think that the timing was pretty standard for what your year end was June 30th. We had done most of the audit work and issued a draft. The reports typically do go to the GFOA after the whole review process back and forth in December. This is actually, I think, like the third meet, right? We were supposed to be at a live meeting And because of the pandemic and everything closing down, I think that's what postponed it. So apologies for that. This is late for a typical review and meeting, although the reports themselves, I don't think, went late. I will talk about the purchase order system and the lack of a formal procurement policy and consistent use of purchase orders. Purchase orders are not required, but they are certainly a best practice. What happens with a good PO system is that there is a formal approval process before goods and services are actually purchased. That makes you more accountable to make sure that you have followed all the municipal procurement laws related to that purchase, and that you have funds available in your budget that have been appropriated for that. So it is a best practice. It is highly recommended. It is not, you're not breaking any laws by not doing it. It is not a requirement, but we do strongly recommend that you use a good solid purchase order system and that you use it consistently in accordance with your own policy.
That good, Councilor?
Thank you. I was just wondering about the administration, if you had the goal of instituting that. I mean, as a small business person, I can't imagine not using purchase orders just because you purchase, they're a phenomenal tool to make sure that you're buying actually what you want to buy, and you can track it, and it's a budgetary tool, and you can follow up to make sure that what comes in the door is exactly what you wanted to buy. Thanks.
Mr. Ailes?
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Ames. Great comment. And I agree wholeheartedly with the concept. Purchase orders, they add tremendous value to any organization. There are aspects of our procurement process that we do have controls over. All of it's not documented. All of it isn't as formalized for some of the lower value purchases. So when someone goes and order pens, we don't necessarily always just do a PO for the pens. But anything that's over a certain procurement threshold, I believe it's about $10,000, needs to go to the mayor for approval prior to any orders being issued. And so the mayor, as his statutory authority as the procurement official for the city, does sign off on all of that, which is very similar in process to what a PO is designed to help with. We have begun working to formalize the processes on paper to get just a more consistent approach to that, because every department does do it slightly different on the lower value procurements. And I think in terms of overall risk, I don't want to speak for our auditors, but the threshold of risk here is covered with kind of the higher end procurements. It's really kind of the day-to-day lower end, lower risk type things that we could work to tighten up, and we intend to do that.
That's great to hear. And just, given what we started this meeting out with, I know personally that when you do formalize these things, it gives you a lot of opportunity to bring new vendors, people of color, women-owned companies into the system. So it's just a great way to try to expand your reach and to the community.
Thank you, Councilor Ames. Any other member? Yeah. Your Honor, the Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. President. Excuse me, just to add to what Mr. Ailes said, the strong majority of POs that come to my desk are familiar in that they're issues we've worked through together. They're purchases that reflect policies we're working to promote. Some I will need to call department heads in or talk through with Mr. Ailes and Mr. Argalevich to get a better handle on what I'm seeing. For the most part, when they get to me, they're things we've worked through. At times we'll have meetings specific to a PO. At other times the PO gets sent back and it's not something that makes sense for us given where we're at in a budget year or how a budget's tracking. So I think there's a very robust process around the procurement process we use. Just to give you a sense of how that kind of plays out in the application of it all. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron.
Mayor, just to add to that, I agree wholeheartedly with what you and Ryan said, is that the purchase order system, there is one there. Our issue with auditors is the documentation. We have to audit to policies internal controls. And as Brian said, is we know that they're being reviewed, but there isn't a policy. Where's the cutoff? How is it done? And then when we do our testing, we see the approval by the mayor as part of the process, but we don't know where that level comes up. And that's kind of, from an audit standpoint and internal control, it's not non-existent. It's just that we'd like to see better documentation so we can refine our testing to make sure that you are complying with your own internal control policies as documented.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Perry, do you want to make a comment on the audit?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, very quickly, as you know, I wrote to the council on April 2nd, trying to summarize the findings, and hopefully you have received that memo. Renee Davis is correct. The city received the highest opinions. The terminology is called present fairly. So we received that. The CAFR is a good thing. With regard to the internal controls, I'm not going to beat a dead horse on the pension issue. I'm hoping that's going to go away next year when we see the new audit report. We'll just let that go. The other thing I'd raise, which hasn't really been discussed, is the second year in a row we've seen a small liability in the police detail account that in my conversations with the administration, they're hoping to get that cleaned up. I don't know whether they're going to do a transfer within the budget or how they're going to handle that, but I do remind the administration that hopefully we'll get that cleaned up before we close out the books. And the last thing I'd add, and I appreciate Renee's commentary on the financial policies, as the council knows, and certainly the mayor knows, both the mayor and the city council did a lot of work in the last couple of years to get that off the ground and running. I've always felt it's probably the most important thing I was involved with the city when we got that done. And as Renee indicated, and I appreciate her commentary on it, that's going to hopefully see us through this financial issues we're going to have with the COVID, and hopefully we'll be able to better secure the financial operations of the city. So I appreciate the commentary on the financial policies. It's something I think it's going to really stay with us for many years to come. That said, Mr. President, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or any other commentary.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Any councilors have any questions or comments for either Ms. Davis, Mr. Perry, Mr. Ailes, or Mr. Powers? All right, guys, you're off the hook. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Thank you, Mr. Powers. Always good to see you. And we'll see you soon, a little later this year, we hope.
Yes, we will. Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Good night. Not to everybody, just to you guys. Next up, we have a resolution, and I'm going to ask Councilors Rand and Flowers to address that.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, I'm not sure if Kasia is still on the meeting with us, but I did just want to say, offer my words of thanks to Kasia. So Kasia, I wanted to say thank you for being here with us, and thank you for sharing with us about your experience. And to my colleagues on the council, I just wanted to make sure that we don't lose track of our accountability to Kasia, but really to all of our residents of color in our community. And she's asked us for a date when she can follow up with us. And I understand we maybe can't talk that through and give her the date right now, but I want to make sure we don't lose track and get back to her so that she can rightly hold us accountable to the work of leading our community. But Kasia, thank you. And thank you for your words. You said for learning and being uncomfortable. And that really resonated with me, because I think what should have been evident to all of us, to white America for a long time, is that we have much learning to do, and we need to dig in and do that learning now. And it's absolutely important and imperative, I believe, that we make ourselves uncomfortable, because the comfort of our system only benefits those of us with privilege. And so allowing ourselves to remain comfortable is allowing that systemic racism that Kasia rightly called out to go on. So Kasia, I want to say thank you for being here and for sharing with us about your experience.
Thank you. I feel great. I'm so appreciative that I was given a chance to be heard.
Thank you. Well, and your words and your voice are powerful, and I want to thank you for sharing them.
Thank you, Councilor Flowers.
Thank you. And the reason I particularly wanted to circle back to Keisha is because this resolution that Councillor Rand and I are presenting was in the works and written by us before George Floyd was killed. But what was true when we wrote it and what was in our minds and what is true now is that the systemic racism that contributed to his death existed then and impacts not only but it impacts all the systems around us. Actually, I won't even say not only, but this is a resolution about our community and how we care for each other in the time of COVID. And we also recognize that marginalized communities and communities of color are disproportionately being impacted by the COVID-19 health crisis. And so I think for us, part of this resolution is thinking together how as a community, we care for each other, and a specific initiative that we're introducing tonight to you all that we hope we can go forward with. That's a way for Beverly residents to dig in and show our commitment to mutual care for one another during this time. But that is also a way that we are committing to working together to care for marginalized communities, people who have not had voices at tables of power, making decisions about when things will be, our state will be reopening, or states will be reopening, and people who have been on the front lines working. So I offer that just by way of, I think, tying in something that could appear disconnected from our important conversations earlier. I think as we need to continue to remind ourselves, none of it is disconnected. Systemic racism is woven into the fabric of our day-to-day lives. And so we need to, I believe, begin to really open our eyes to where it is. And so I think this is connected and important to what we talked about earlier. So with that, I would invite Councillor Rand and I to join me, and we'll go back and forth to present this to you. This is a resolution on community in the time of COVID-19, offered by myself and Councillor Rand, Ward 2 representative. Whereas the city of Beverly, Massachusetts, founded in 1626 and one of the Commonwealth's oldest communities, has a long and proud history of coming together in times of need and crisis for the greater good. And
whereas residents of the city of Beverly have been responding with acts of care and kindness to and for one another, including but not limited to making masks for friends and neighbors, donating food to feed doctors, nurses, hospital workers, and first responders on the front lines of this crisis, continuing with community meals to feed neighbors every day, setting up informal community swap sites where people can post what they need and share what they have with others, using their artistic talents to document families on their front steps during this time to raise money for local charities, chalking sidewalks with messages of hope and love, starting campaigns to place hearts in windows to show love for community, supporting our local and small businesses in whatever ways they can, and encouraging children to feel empowered to help others by sharing their artwork, messages of love and hope during the current public health emergency caused by the novel coronavirus COVID-19. And
whereas we recognize that this public health emergency has placed a disproportionate strain on essential workers working in service industries, many of whom may be compensated at minimum wage, who are going to work each day to ensure that the essential needs of our community for food, pharmacy items, and clean and safe public buildings and spaces are met. And
whereas we further recognize that this public health emergency is also disproportionately impacting communities of color and continues to have that impact now as Massachusetts enters into its phased reopening. And
we recognize that our community is one that strives to do the most good for as many people as possible, and that our community is seeking to continue to take this public health emergency seriously and to show mutual care for one another and support for those workers who have been physically working in public-facing jobs throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, and for those being asked to physically return to work as the reopening phases begin. And
whereas our children and young people have also sacrificed greatly during this public health emergency and have done their part to keep others safe and to save lives by staying home from school, losing time with friends, losing youth sports activities, scouting activities, and other social supports and structures, as well as losing important milestones and hoped for end of school year activities. And we believe that young people whose needs and concerns are not always represented within our systems and structures of industry, government, and economy deserve a voice at the table as decisions are now being made regarding reopening our community. And that history will go on to reflect the important role that our children and young people have played during this time. And
keeping 6 feet of space at a minimum from others not living in one same residence at this time, as well as avoiding close social interactions, large group gatherings, and limiting playdates for children continue to be important public health measures that we can all take to protect one another and to protect our frontline and essential workers, as well as those workers returning to work now. And
whereas the wearing of masks to fully cover the nose and mouth when in public and unable to keep 6 feet or more of distance from others, including, we recognize, from the yards, front porches, and open windows of our neighbors in our dense residential neighborhoods, has been shown to be one of the most effective ways to slow the spreading of the virus by asymptomatic people who may not realize they have the virus, but who are still capable of spreading the virus to others, and has been shown in other countries where the virus has been slowed more fully to have a critical impact to this end. And
whereas the wearing of masks is a way for our community to show mutual care for one another, that we know Beverly residents strive to be about, to protect our frontline and essential workers, to help ease the burden on our hospitals and healthcare systems, and to further slow the spread of the virus, that we might more quickly return to a time of ever-increasing safety so that our children can resume playdates, our youth can resume connecting with their peers, and our economy can reopen more fully for the good of those currently being adversely impacted by loss of employment and loss of income.
Therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Beverly City Council, congratulate and thank all residents of our city for the hard work and many sacrifices made thus far during this ongoing public health emergency. Ask residents to stay the course and continue to show respect and care for one another on our streets and sidewalks, in our public spaces, and while supporting our many businesses, and to forego social gatherings or overcrowding of our beaches and public spaces. And we do hereby invite all residents to participate in a new initiative being co-sponsored with our local public access television team at BevCam called Wear a Mask Beverly, to allow residents of all ages to use their creativity and their caring to create unique PSAs about why it is important to wear a mask to help to slow the spread of coronavirus in our community, and to highlight the many ways we as a community can embrace the challenge of showing mutual care for one another during these times. And that the city clerk please spread a copy of this resolution upon the city records.
Great work, ladies. All encompassing, and it said so much. Any councils wish to make a comment before I ask for a motion to approve? All right. Ms. Kent, you're going to spread a copy of this on city records after we take a roll call vote. I would entertain a motion to wholeheartedly approve the resolution.
So moved. Gratefully.
Second.
Ms. Kent, how about a roll call?
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Lauer?
Yes.
Brady?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
Guanci?
Yes. We're on communications from His Honor the Mayor.
Order number 114, dear Honorable City Council, I respectfully request that you approve a transfer from the golf and tennis enterprise accounts undesignated fund balance into the golf and tennis operating budget to address an expected revenue shortfall for fiscal year 20. Upon the expiration of the existing management contract, the city went out to bid for a new agreement. Unfortunately, that process produced a bid that offered less annual revenue than anticipated, creating a budgetary shortfall. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic has kept our golf course closed and not producing revenue for a significant portion of the spring. As a result of these circumstances, I request a transfer for $205,000 to quote, cover the cost of operations through June 30th, prevent a budgetary shortfall for fiscal year 20. Please initiate action at your next city council meeting by setting a public hearing. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
I would entertain a motion to set that public hearing for Monday, June 15th at 8 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Kent.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Frady's?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo? Yes. Guanci?
Yes.
Order number 115, Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been given a $10,000 donation from the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation to support operations at the Council on Aging during this public health crisis. This generous donation to the Beverly Council on Aging will support elder services for COVID-19 emergency relief. The Council on Aging intends to use this donation to fund COVID-19 emergency scholarships, grants, to older adults who have experienced financial hardship or need during this pandemic, and to make appointment-based curbside outreach visits during the summer months. The visits will include taking a front door picture of senior homeowners and delivering such items as toilet paper, hand sanitizer, puzzles, crossword books, and summer treats, and will include musicians to greet the seniors. This project will provide a photo and history of older adults living in Beverly during the time of the pandemic. We are also investigating the need for and the use of an interpreter service to assist non-English speaking older adults in gaining access to the SNAP program, fuel assistance, and other federal or state programs that may be eligible for. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city to be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by taking action on this matter at your upcoming meeting on June 1st, 2020. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
And I would entertain a motion to accept that donation.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Kent.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman? Feldman? Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Frady's?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
Guanci?
And yes.
And Feldman back?
Yes. Sorry. Internet
That's
issue.
Okay. Thank you. Order number 116. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $69,000 grant from the Corona Aid, Relief, and Economic Security CARES Act for operations at the Beverly Regional Airport. The CARES Act was signed into law by the President on March 27, 2020, and includes $10 billion in funds to be awarded as economic relief to eligible U.S. airports affected by the prevention of, preparation for, and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The CARES Act provides new funds distributed by various formulas for all airports that are part of the National Airport System. The CARES Act provides funds to increase the federal share to 100% for Airport Improvement Program, AIP, and supplemental discretionary grants already planned for fiscal year 2020. Under normal circumstances, AIP grant recipients contribute a matching percentage of the project costs. Providing this additional funding and eliminating the local share will also critical safety and capacity projects to continue as planned regardless of airport sponsors' current financial circumstances. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before an earmark, grant, donation, or gift to the city can be expanded for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve the grant by taking action on this matter at your upcoming meeting, June 1st, 2020. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
I would entertain a motion to accept that grant on behalf of the City of Beverly.
So moved. I also have a question, Council President.
Go ahead, Council Houseman.
Yeah, so $69,000 grant, it's always, great to receive money, especially when it's 100% grant. My question is, the receipt of the money does not specify how it would be spent. And I'm wondering, I mean, there's sort of a general reference to allow critical safety and capacity projects, but that doesn't really tell us how this money is going to be spent. So I'd make a request that we hear from the airport commissioner or manager what the plan is to spend the money that we are presumably going to vote to accept. Thank you.
So the motion will be to accept the grant and then ask Airport Manager Gloria Bullion to report back to the council as to how that $69,000 will be spent. Sound good, Counselor?
That sounds great. Thank you. Yes.
So that's so moved. A second to that motion?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Kent.
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Brady's, Hausman,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Yes.
Guanci,
Yes.
Brady's,
Yes, sorry.
And Ms. Kent, you'll reach out to Ms. Bullion with that request, correct?
Yes, I just made a note of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Order number 117. Dear Honorable City Council, I respectfully request a waiver of the residency requirement for Stefano Basso from 11 Ames Street in Salem to continue to serve as an alternate member on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Basso is an architect at a Beverly firm, and his knowledge and experience is an asset to the board. His current term is effective until October 1st, 2020. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
If those of you that know Stefano know what a professional he is, and according to Chairman Margolis, it is imperative that you remain on the board. So I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, definitely.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Kent?
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman, Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Brady's,
Yes.
Hausman,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Yes.
and Guanci.
Yes.
Okay. Order number 118. Dear Honorable City Council, I respectfully request that you approve a transfer from the Recreation Enterprise accounts under designated fund balance into the Recreation Enterprise operating budget to address an expected revenue shortfall for fiscal year 20. The uncertainty of summer programming connected to the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in decreased revenue during the spring months. The spring revenue comprises a significant portion of the annual revenue for this account, and this transfer will address the impending revenue deficit for fiscal year 20. I request a transfer of $125,000 to cover the cost of operations through June 30th, 2020. Please initiate action at your next City Council meeting by setting a public hearing. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
I would entertain a motion to set that public hearing for Monday, June 15th at 8:15 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Brady's,
Yes.
Hausman,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Yes.
Guanci.
Yes. I would entertain a motion to accept the late file for order number 126.
So moved.
Second.
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Brady's,
Yes.
Hausman,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Yes.
and Guanci.
Yes. Ms. Kent?
Order number 126. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $10,000 grant from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Mass DOT, to support ADA access into the building. The grant covers 100% of the project through Mass DOT Aeronautics with no matching funds required. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the city council approve this grant by taking action on this matter at your meeting on Monday, June 1st, 2020. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
And I'd entertain a motion to approve that request and accept the grant.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman, Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Frady's,
Yes.
Houseman,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Yes.
Guanci,
Yes.
Feldman.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. It's cutting out right when I'm supposed to vote.
I would entertain a motion to have Councilor Rand take the chair for orders, the three late files, number 127, 128, and 129, as myself and Councilor Rotundo have to recuse ourselves for those three orders.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Frady's,
Yes.
Houseman,
Yes.
Rand.
Yes.
Do I say Rotundo and Guanci?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, say
Oh,
them.
you did. Okay, Rotundo,
Yes.
Guanci.
Yes, Councilor Rand, you have to vote on 127 and 128 and 129, you refer to legal affairs, okay?
Got it. Thank you for the guidance, President
I'm gonna
Guanci.
disappear.
Okay. Mayor Cahill, would you like to talk about order number 127?
So, yes, Counselor, thank you. Excuse me, Madam President, for the moment, right? So this is the emergency order regarding city ordinances 113-2 and 192-61. This is, so what you're going to hear after this, this is the emergency order that if you approve it, it will allow us as a city to be ready to allow outdoor dining from those restaurants who choose to try it in hopes that it can help them through this this difficult COVID time when the governor's when phase 2 begins, which is next Monday, June 8th. The later two orders are to take what's in here up on a up through the regular process, where you would set a hearing and then consider. This is an emergency order that's good for up to 60 days and really meant to be used in the meantime while the other orders are go through the process. So the reason for the emergency is that we're in a time when the only way to safely in the moment and for the time being, the only way to safely allow for provide for these restaurants to try to do their business is by ordering out allowing outdoor dining, and this actually pertains specifically to the liquor, the ability to serve alcohol outdoors in a city sidewalk, in city parking spaces, in a city public way or park, and so that's what you would be approving as an emergency order, and for the time being, as I said, well, the same subject matter comes before you with the other orders through your regular procedure. So one is the possession or consumption of alcohol in public ways, public places, or public and private property. And the other component is emergency order to allow the sandwich board signs to be handled differently. Now, in each instance, there still will be a process with the consumption of alcohol. It will still, instead of going through the current process, you can see in the notwithstanding language, Beverly restaurants may be allowed to operate and serve alcohol on city sidewalks, in parklets, parking spaces, public ways, or other public space, but only upon approval by the Health Department, Municipal Inspectors Department, Planning Department, and Public Safety, in accordance with standards established by the Planning Department. Any such use is further subject to review and approval by the licensing board, including conditions imposed by such board. So that would be for the consumption of alcohol outside the restaurant. Sandwich board signs, similar notwithstanding language. Sandwich board signs may be displayed without a permit issued by the city council, but only upon approval by the municipal inspections and planning departments in accordance with standards established by the planning department. And as I said, these would be good. Well, I'll read the last paragraph. These emergency ordinances shall stand repealed on the 61st day following their adoption, unless an earlier date is specified in the measure, or unless a second emergency measure adopted in conformity with this section is passed extending it, or unless a measure passed in conformity with the procedures for measures generally has been passed extending it pursuant to Section City Charter 2-9A. Our hope is that you folks will agree with this being an emergency order and also vote to pass it. It needs a 2/3 vote. My understanding is given that 2 councilors need to recuse themselves, then it will need 6 votes out of the 7 of you in order to pass. And again, our hope is that you'll take that action this evening so that it'll be in place for the restaurants to be able to make their plans and try to reopen starting next Monday. And that the next 2 orders, which you'll read, and as I heard the council president say, refer to the appropriate committee, they will ask you to extend the same dynamic, the same allowances through the calendar year to December 31st of this year. This is, as I think we all know, this is a strategy that cities and towns throughout the state and really across the country are taking on to try to help our restaurant industry, which in Beverly is mostly small independent restaurants and coffee shops. And the goal is this will help them to survive and hopefully begin to thrive again as we move ahead through the COVID times here, through this pandemic. And this can be done, as I said, the emergency component is that this needs to be done in a way that's safe for employees and safe for customers. So thank you for the time and attention this evening to this.
Thank you, Mayor Cahill. And I see that a few councilors would like to speak, but before I do that, I actually dove right in before I need to actually, I'll take a motion to accept Order 127 as a late file. Sorry about
So
that.
moved.
Second.
So moved.
Okay, and then roll call, please.
Ames,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Frady's,
Yes.
Houseman,
Yes.
and Rand.
Yes, thank you. And I know, Mayor Cahill, you read portions of the order, but I believe the next thing we'd normally do is have Ms. Kent read the order. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Order number 127. Dear Honorable City Council, as you know, last month I established a business support task force working together with the Beverly Chamber of Commerce, Beverly Main Streets, and other city departments to identify and address the needs of our Beverly business as the state plans a gradual reopening. A restaurant subcommittee was formed out of that group. Together we have identified that many of these restaurants are struggling with significant declines in revenue, despite the option to run a takeout business in the interim. Recognizing this need, the governor is expected to release guidance for restaurants to beginning opening for outdoor dining on June 8, 2020. Based on the outdoor dining survey conducted last month, approximately 30 businesses are interested in doing outdoor dining. The majority of them are located downtown and would be interested in serving alcohol in addition to food from their own kitchen. These restaurants are aware of the safety and health precautions necessary to keep their employees and patrons safe. I am respectfully requesting that you consider the emergency order enclosed herewith then to facilitate the ability of our restaurants to open quickly for outdoor dining by June 8, 2020, if permitted by Governor Baker. Additionally, the other 2 ordinance amendments will formalize in the coming weeks the necessary and temporary changes to our city ordinance related to alcohol service on public property and signs during the reopening phase. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor. The emergency order regarding city ordinances. Section 113-2 and 192-61. Whereas the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts declared a state of emergency on March 10th, 2020, due to the virus that caused the coronavirus 2019 pandemic, COVID-19. Whereas the Governor subsequently issued an order requiring the closure of all brick and mortar establishments until they provide an essential service, and such order resulted in restaurants in the city of Beverly no longer being able to offer dining and to patrons, therefore resulting in a significant financial and economic hardship, in many cases threatening the ability of such businesses to remain viable and also threatening the livelihood and financial stability of employees of such businesses. Whereas the closure of restaurants also threatens the viability of the businesses in the community and the vibrancy of downtown Beverly. Whereas the reopening of restaurants can only occur under certain conditions that allow for the protection of the health and safety of the public, which includes the ability to dine outside in order to reduce transmission of COVID-19. Whereas the Governor has issued guidelines allowing for the reopening of restaurants for outdoor dining, and it is imperative that Beverly restaurants be permitted to operate in accordance with the Governor's guidelines. Now, therefore, it is voted and ordered that foregoing is an emergency involving the health or city of the people of their property is contemplated by Section 2-9 of the City Charter. Beverly City Ordinance is hereby amended to insert paragraph C in Section 113-2 and paragraph E in Section 192-61 is set forth below. Excuse me. Section 113-2, possession or consumption on public ways, in public places, or in private property. No person shall drink any alcohol beverages as defined in Mass General Law Chapter 138, Section 1, or carry or be in possession of any open bottle or can container of alcohol beverage as defined in Mass General Law Chapter 138, Section 1, while in or upon any public way or any way to which the public has the right of access, or any place to which members of the public have access as invitees or licensees, parks or playgrounds or private land, building structures, or place with the consent of the owner, person in control thereof. All alcohol beverages being used in violation of this section shall be seized and safely held until final adjunction of the charge against the person arrested or summoned before the court, at which time they should be returned to the person entitled to lawful possession. B, this section shall not apply to any place duly licensed to serve alcoholic beverages as defined in Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 1. C, notwithstanding paragraph A, Beverly residents may be allowed to operate and serve alcohol on city sidewalks, in parklets, parking spaces, public ways, or other public space, but only upon arrival by the health department, municipal inspection departments, planning department, public safety, in accordance with standards established by the planning department. Any such use is further subject to review and approval by the license board, including conditions imposed by such board. Sandwich board signs is defined by Chapter 300. Zoning must be authorized by the City Council prior to the issuance of a sign permit by the Director of Municipal Inspections. The City Council may issue a permit to a business establishment for one such sign, provided such signs meet the requirement outlined in Chapter 300. Zoning for such signs, the provisions of this section. The term of the permit issued by the council should be for 1 year and should be subject to the application or renewal fees determined by the Director of Municipal Inspections. And its revocation shall be subject to Section B. The City Council may vote at any time to revoke any permit for a sandwich board sign, wherever it is opinion the sign becomes an eyesore, nuisance, public safety concern, or is neglected, and when the number of violations of the zoning and city ordinance warrant such action in the public safety, ensuring the integrity of the city ordinance. In cases where the City Council revokes a permit for a sandwich board sign that is placed on city property, the City of Beverly has the authority to immediately remove such sign from the public way. No permit for a sandwich board sign shall be issued by the City Council unless and until the following requirements have been met. Application in a form acceptable to the City Council filed by the Clerk's Office. Proof of adequate liability insurance for the duration of the permit period is provided in a form accepted for the City Council, and all applicable approvals from city boards, including not limited to the Design Review Board, have been obtained. An application for renewal of an existing permit for a sandwich board sign shall not require review by the design review board so long as there are no changes being proposed to the previous approved sign design and so long as there are no changes to any condition upon which their existing permit was issued. Notwithstanding paragraphs A through D, sandwich board signs may be displayed without a permit issued by the City Council, but only upon approval by the Municipal Inspection and Planning Department in accordance with standards established by the Planning Department. The end.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kent. That was a bit of a marathon. I appreciate you sticking with it and everybody listening. So first, I'd like to just explain that our first vote needs to be on, is about declaring an emergency, a state of emergency. So, and I'd like to also recognize Solicitor Williams is here, as well as Planning Director Darlene Nguyen. So first, are there any questions from the council about the state declaring a state of emergency? Hearing none, I'd like to accept a motion to first declare a state of emergency.
May I comment for a second?
Absolutely.
Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt.
Just
for clarity, so the vote, the first vote, you're correct, involves a declaration or a vote regarding the emergency. The actual vote, as noted in the order, is that the preamble that was read regarding what the status is of the COVID-19 pandemic and the governor's orders and the impact it's had on business and the public safety crisis, public health crisis, constitutes an emergency under our charter involving the health and safety of people or their property, which would allow you to then pass this emergency ordinance. So it's not so much that you have to declare a state of emergency. It's that there's an emergency regarding health and safety that allows you to invoke Section 2-9A of the city charter.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I would accept a motion to approve that the foregoing is an emergency involving the health or safety of the people or their property as contemplated in Section 2-9A of the city charter.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Ames?
Yes.
Bellman?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
And Rand?
Yes. Okay, and then I see a number of counselors had wanted to speak. I guess, let me just look at my chat list here. Thank you. I think we started with Counselor Houseman had a question.
No.
Excellent. Counselor Flowers then, that was easy.
Thank you. Mine is really just a clarifying question to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, Mr. Mayor. So I think it's a pretty easy one. I just wanted to double check my understanding that we are giving permission for this to happen as early as June 8th, assuming that the state then moves to the next phase on June 8th. So is it correct to say that if the governor did not move the state, we would just delay this, the permission from the city to make these changes begin? Is that accurate?
So this emergency ordinance would go into effect upon passage, but of course we wouldn't be, nobody would be opening until the governor gives the green light. And now he spoke today and put the sector specific workplace safety guidelines or standards out there, and his commentary at that point today was, this is so you can get yourselves ready for next Monday. I think that they fully anticipate that outdoor dining will be approved on next Monday, and that indoor will come sometime later in phase 2, they hope, if the public health data show that it can. He did also say today that as of today, employees could begin going in to help prepare the spaces for the opening next Monday that's anticipated. Is that helpful?
That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Counselor Flaherty.
Yes, it's a question for Ms. Williams, just for clarifying. I don't think it's a problem, but the mayor had talked about a 2/3 vote. Is that a 2/3 vote of the full 9 council, or the 2/3 vote of the voting members, because 2 have recused themselves?
Councilor Flaherty, under the city charter, section 2-9A, the vote regarding the emergency requires 6 votes in the affirmative. So, I mean, that constitutes 2/3 of the city council, but the actual language states 6 votes in the affirmative. So regardless of how you characterize it, it has to be 6.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so the short answer is it can't be 2/3 of the majority. It has to be 6 votes. Regarding the emergency piece of it, interestingly, you can still pass the actual ordinance by majority. As a practical matter, I can't imagine you wouldn't have 6 votes for the second part of it if you didn't have 6 votes for the first part. So you do need 6 votes.
Right. And then there's another clarifying question, if I may. The mayor institute any emergency rules or laws? Did he do that, or does he need our vote, or is he allowed to do that? Or even if he did it, I wasn't too sure about regarding COVID situations and the
Are
policy.
you speaking to something in particular?
Maybe like the idea about the walking on the street policy about going one way. Is that a recommendation, or is that something that he can do? I forget.
So all of the orders, the actual orders in the city pertaining to COVID-19 regulation and requirements were issued under the Board of Health Authority, which allows them to issue those orders.
Okay.
So it was done through the Board of Health.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ames.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. And then back to Counselor Houseman.
So actually, my question relates to the other vote that we are about to take, not to this specific vote, not the emergency, but the city ordinance change.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just getting in the queue to wait to ask a question when we get to that ordinance.
Okay.
Not
All
for
right.
now.
Got it.
Thank
Okay. So, Ms. Kent, can you help me here?
I thought we did the roll call for the emergency, no?
Yeah, we did. We accepted that. We did the roll call for that. So now we are actually at the point where we would vote to pass the second part of our vote for this ordinance, which is Beverly City Ordinance is hereby amended to insert paragraph C in section 113-2 and paragraph E in section 192-61. And Counselor Houseman, did you have a question about that?
Yeah, just to clarify, we have already accepted this as a late file, correct? This order?
Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So my question really, I suppose, is for the mayor on this. I'm gratified and excited by the work of the Business Support Task Force, and perhaps I missed it on the city website, but I would request that that the administration be as transparent as possible in terms of letting us know who's on the task force, who's on the restaurant subcommittee, so that we can learn more about the ongoing work that is being done in this respect. I mean, I think it's very important for our downtown economy, for the life and culture of our city, and it's great to learn about it. I'd love to know more about it than what is just in the first few sentences of your cover letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. What we'll do is I know that Mrs. Nguyen is on the call. I'll ask her to make sure that she sends an email out with that list to the full council tomorrow. Also, we'll get. I don't know if there's something on the website or not, but we will. And Councilor Rand has actually been serving on the Business Support Task Force as well. But we'll definitely get that information out tomorrow and make sure that you have the opportunity to see just who's been a part of it and any questions that any of you have about the work of the group. Definitely ask Mrs. Nguyen and Councilor Rand. And I know Councilor Ames has participated in some of the meetings as well. Am I missing anybody? I don't want to miss anybody in terms of who's.
I believe Councilor Rotundo has been attending pretty regularly.
I apologize. Yes, he absolutely has. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if there are any minutes, but if there are, it'd be maybe a little geeky, but I'd love to read them.
If I may, Councilor Rand?
Please.
Sure. I will add too that the restaurant subcommittee is kind of an offshoot between Main Streets and the city as well. So we've kind of taken turns taking the lead on that part of it. But we do have summary notes from each meeting, and I can make sure that those get up on the website, and all the meetings are posted, 48 hours ahead of time. It's not an official public body necessarily, but it is, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. So I'll make sure that our meeting notes get put up on our COVID page as well, and get maybe a separate task, line item on the side for that.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much.
One last point there. As Mrs. Nguyen said, it's not an official appointed body, but since we also, excuse me, we jumped off from the Economic and Community Development Council, and we've been inviting that whole group. So we post in part for that reason as well. They open and close a meeting as part of the overall. Also, I just want to also say that the work has been, the planning department and Mrs. Nguyen have been fantastic, as have the Greater Beverly Chamber, Leslie Gould and Main Streets with Jen Wallace and their teams. So it's really been a joint effort. So many of our businesses have been very actively involved in the conversation. I think that's critical. So thanks for the question. It helps to flesh out some of this.
Thank you. So are there any other questions about basically what we're doing is we're allowing alcohol to be on public premises. Is that a correct summary, Solicitor Williams, of this order?
Yes, Councilor Rand, that is the actual ordinance amendment. Currently, the ordinance prohibits the consumption of alcohol in public ways and sidewalks. This will allow for that on a temporary basis and under certain terms and conditions.
Excellent. And Councilor Houseman, you have one more question?
Yeah, just to follow up on that for a moment, not to preempt whatever comes out, from the administration in terms of notes and so forth, but there's a reference to parklets, which I know my time in Salem before the whole, COVID-19, this last summer, there were parklets in parking spaces in different places in the city. And I wonder if, just sort of as a preview, if other than sidewalks, if there are any plans to have parklets or the like on some of the city streets along, especially on Cabot, where we now have some, curb cuts and so forth. I don't mean to belabor the question, but if Ms. Nguyen or the mayor could maybe speak to that just briefly, I'd appreciate it.
Ms. Nguyen, why don't you lead and I'll follow?
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Councilor Houseman. There was not to get into too much, but there was an outdoor dining survey that we sent out. Jen Wallace sent out to all the restaurants to find out who would like to do outdoor dining and where. And maybe about half of them had their own private property where they could do the outdoor dining, and the other half needed some public space in order to have that opportunity. And we spent over the weekend since Friday calling everyone one-on-one to find out more specifics about their plans. And generally, they are looking to use sidewalks. The mayor has also offered use of certain parking areas, such as on Cabot Street, parking spaces in front of the building, which we need to figure out the parameters of that. Some restaurants have inquired about using some of the larger sidewalks on Cabot Street in front of the churches. And some of the restaurants have inquired about using public parking areas such as the Park Street lot. And we haven't further discussed those options, but those were some of the questions that were asked. Preliminary, we're talking about sidewalks and adjacencies to the restaurants. And we would explore whether anything that's not contiguous to the restaurant space is feasible.
Okay, I'll just follow up. That's really well said. I think this is all very much in flux, and everybody's trying to be really creative. I know that Mr. Nguyen has designated this week's project review team meeting as a forum for any of the restaurants who are interested to begin the dialogue. We want to make sure that any restaurant that wants to try outdoor dining has some good options for outdoor seating. It's really important that if we, that as we find, there'll be some easier ones for some restaurants depending on where they're situated. We want to make sure that everybody who's trying to travel this route has a chance to do it successfully. So it'll be sidewalks and parking spaces, and there may be some times where sections of street will be closed. It'll be some parking lot space, perhaps some park land. It all depends on what's going to make sense for a given restaurant and where they sit geographically. If you think of other countries that you've been and dined outdoors, and sometimes you gotta squint to find the front door of the restaurant depending on where your seating is, but it's a part of the experience. So we'll try to use all good good judgment, and as you see in the proposed emergency ordinance, there are a number of departments who will have responsibility for helping make sure that happens. Last point I think I'll make is we will be in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act with everything we do. We must be, and we will be, and that's a value and a priority for all of us. So I want to make sure that's said. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Are there any other questions about this order? Okay, so I would accept a motion to amend by inserting paragraph C in section 113-2 and paragraph E in section 192-61.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
And Rand.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. And I think that I'm done pretending to be president here, serving my vice president duties. Is that correct? I believe the next two orders we can call back President Guanci and Councilor Rotundo.
Madam President, could I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I just want to thank you all for your partnership on this. This is, we'll have an ongoing dialogue about how to make this successful for our local restaurant and coffee shop owners. It's of great importance to them. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. And Mayor Cahill, thanks for the emergency business task force. I know has been putting in some hours to figure this out. So thank you and the planning department for all your hard work on that. Thank you.
Councilor Rand.
Councilor Houseman. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt.
Okay. Please be my guest. You go first.
Okay.
Who?
Solicitor Williams, please.
It's my understanding that President Guanci and Councilor Rotundo recused themselves for 128 and 129 as well. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, because those are the cover the same subject matter, but they'll go through the regular ordinance amendment approval process.
Okay.
So I think my understanding was those were going to be referred to legal affairs. If that's right, if you're doing referrals.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for keeping me on track here. I guess we're not done yet. And the hard work goes to Ms. Kent then. So
Yeah, that was my understanding, but they're both recusing themselves for all three too.
Okay, thank you.
You want to read 128?
Yes, please. Order number 128.
Accept the late file.
I would accept the motion to accept the late file.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Frady's,
Yes.
Houseman,
Yes.
and Rand.
Yes.
Order number 128, proposed to City Council, proposed order amending Beverly Ordinance Section 113-2, possession or consumption of alcohol in public ways, in public places, or in private property by adding paragraph C as set forth below. No person shall drink any alcohol as defined in Mass General Law 138, Section 1, or be in possession of any open bottle or can containing an alcoholic beverage is defined in Mass General Law 138, Section 1, while in or upon any public way or any way to which the public has a right of access, or any place to which members of the public have access as invitees or in licensees, park or playground or private land, building, structure, or place without the consent of the owner or person in control thereof. All alcoholic beverages being used in violation of this section shall be seized and safely held until final adjudication of the charge against the person arrested or summoned before the court, at what time they should be returned to the person entitled to lawful possession. The section shall not apply to any place duly licensed to serve alcohol beverages, excuse me, is defined in Mass General Law 138, Section 1. Notwithstanding paragraph A, Beverly restaurants may be allowed to operate and serve alcohol on city sidewalks, in parklets, parking spaces, public ways, or other public spaces, but only upon approval by the Health Department, Municipal Inspection Department, Planning Department, and Public Safety, in accordance with standards established by the Planning Department, as such use is further subject to review and approval by the licensing board, including conditions imposed by such board. The paragraph C shall sunset and be no further force in effect of 11:59 p.m. December 31st, 2020.
Thank you. Please refer that to Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 29.
Thank you.
I take a vote, right? Roll call vote.
Not to refer it.
Proposal to City Council. Proposed order amending Beverly Ordinance Section 192-61, sandwich board signs, by adding paragraph E as set forth below. Sandwich board signs is defined by Chapter 300 zoning must be authorized by the City Council prior to the issue of a permit, by the Director of Municipal Inspections. The City Council may issue a permit for a business establishment for one such sign, providing such sign meets the requirements outlined in Chapter 300, zoning for such signs and the provisions of this section. The term of the permit issued by the council shall for 1 year and shall be subject to the application and/or renewal fees determined by the Director of Municipal Inspections, and its revocation shall be subject on subsection B. The City Council may vote at any time to revoke any permit for a sandwich board sign whenever it is opinion the sign becomes an eyesore, a nuisance, a public safety concern, or is neglected, or when the number of violations of the zoning and city ordinance warrants such action in the interest of public safety and ensuring the integrity of the city's ordinances. In cases where the City Council revoke a permit for a sandwich board sign that is placed on city property, the City of Beverly has the authority to immediately remove such sign from a public way. No permit for a sandwich board sign shall be issued by the City Council until the following requirements have been met. Application packet in a form acceptable to the City Council has been filed with the City Clerk's office. Proof of adequate liability insurance for the duration of the permit period is provided in forms applicable to the City Council, and all applicable approvals from city boards, including but not limited to the Design Review Board, have been obtained. An application for renewal of an existing permit for a sandwich board sign shall not require review by the Design Review Board so long as there are no change being proposed to the previous approved sign design, and so long as there are no changes to any condition upon which the existing permit was issued. Notwithstanding paragraphs A and D, sandwich board signs may be displayed without a permit issued by the City Council, but only upon approved by the Municipal Inspections and Planning Departments and according with the standards established by the Planning Board. The paragraph E shall sunset and be no further force in effect as of 11:59 p.m. December 31st, 2020.
Thank you. And please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. Those orders basically extend the life of the order that we discussed approving as an emergency for the 61 days.
Yeah, I think I repeated myself.
That's okay. You did a great job. So thank you. And now President Guanci.
Magically appears.
Hi.
Thanks. You make that look easy, President Guanci.
I'm sure you did great. The reviews on Facebook of how you were doing were awesome.
I'll look at them later.
For city offices and boards.
Order number 120, Beverly Retirement Board, annual cost of living meeting to be held June 25th, 2020.
I would entertain a motion to receive that and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman? Yes. Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady's?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
And Guanci.
Yes.
Order number 121, parking and traffic recommendation to amend the city ordinance chapter 270, section 46, the 30-minute parking, restrict parking on Goat Hill Lane.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. I would entertain a motion to accept the late file for order number 125.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman? Yes. Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
Guanci.
Yes, and Ms. Kent, I don't think you have to read the whole thing. Just read the tagline there.
Yeah. The Community Preservation Committee, 7th round CPA project funding recommendations, phase 2 and special project recommendations.
So they have three items they'd like to have us take a look at. So I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing for Monday, June 15th at 8:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Can I get a little more excited about that second, Councilor Flaherty? Roll call, please.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman? Yes. Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
There's number 33.
Yes.
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
Guanci.
Yes, communications, applications, and petitions.
Order 122, application renewal for secondhand junk dealer license for Marconi Radio at 497 Rancho Street.
Longtime Beverly business. They just celebrated 40 years in business a couple of months ago. So I would entertain a motion to approve their request.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman? Yes. Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady's?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
And Guanci.
Yes.
Okay, order number 123, the budget for FY 2021 budget notes for harbor management from Paul Earl.
And I would entertain a motion to receive those and place them on file.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman? Yes. Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady's?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
Guanci.
Yes, and make sure you put those aside for when Mr. Earl comes in to discuss the harbor management budget when we do special revenue accounts. Ms. Kent?
Order number 124, the Beverly Farmers Market requesting permission to operate the Beverly Farmers Market this year.
And I want to congratulate Mr. Earl for hanging around the whole meeting. Good work. I would entertain a motion to approve that request.
So moved.
Second. And roll call. Councilor Rand is recused.
Yep. Ames?
An enthusiastic yes.
Feldman? Yes. Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady's?
Yes.
Houseman?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
and Guanxi.
Yes, that's all we have for tonight. Correct, Ms. Kent?
That's correct. We'll have a meeting on Thursday.
I know, I'm going to do that right now. We have a special meeting of the Beverly City Council for the sole purpose of Mayor Cahill submitting his FY 2021 budget. That will be at 7 p.m. Ms. Kent will post that tomorrow. Tentatively, we have Council Flaherty and I have budget hearings scheduled for Monday, June 8th, Tuesday, June 9th, and Thursday, June 11th. We'll talk more about those on Thursday. Does anybody have anything else they would like to add?
I have a question for you, Paul.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's Lisa. I have the 9th, 10th, and 11th. Did you change it for the budgets?
Oh, I thought we were always doing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, but we're doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
That's what you had given me, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we can change it, doesn't matter.
Yeah, can we do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 3 nights in a row is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for me, but for everybody.
Right. No, I get it. I just want to get the departments so I have the right dates for them to come in.
Right. And we'll have that information on Thursday. Great meeting, everybody. I think we learned a lot. We did a lot and took care of a lot of good business. Before we adjourn, I'm sure on behalf of the entire City Council, we want to wish the 2020 Beverly High School seniors congratulations on their graduation on Sunday. There was a parade for the graduates from the middle school over to the high school on Friday afternoon. And then the graduation ceremony will take place in waves on Sunday. So we appreciate the students' patience, the parents' understanding, and everybody's efforts as we've all tried to navigate these really difficult times. And I know there's plans that if everything goes well over the summer and more restrictions are lifted, the superintendent is planning on having another graduation ceremony in August.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I hate to interrupt. I apologize.
You never.
Oh, thanks. The rolling rally for the seniors on Friday is actually Friday morning.
Okay.
It kicks off at 9:45 from the middle school, goes over and then through the high school campus, where they'll be greeted and cheered by lots and lots of their teachers from now and years past, I think.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't realize you hung around the whole meeting. Thank you. All right. That said, we'll see everybody on Thursday night, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Ames?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Flowers?
Yes.
Brady's?
Yes.
Hausman?
Yes.
Rand?
Yes.
Rotundo?
Yes.
And Guanxi?
And you know what? In 19 years on the city council, it's always been 9-0. So I would say yes also. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.